Friends, if you are excited to watch the super hit animated adventure Toy Story 4 in English, then you should definitely like this video because today's video is packed with all the details you need to know. And if you are visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel because here you will always find the most entertaining and informative movie content. Friends, the movie we are going to explore today is none other than Toy Story 4. A film that took the beloved Toy Story franchise to new heights with fresh characters, emotional twists, and breathtaking animation. In this video, we will talk in detail about what this movie is, what makes it special, where you can watch it, and all the interesting behind-the-scenes facts that make this film even more exciting. I am going to give you complete information about where you can watch this film, whether it is available on OTT platforms, digital rental, or satellite channels. We will also talk about the best way to watch this movie to enjoy the full impact of its colorful world and heartwarming story. Not only that, but we will also dive into the technical department of the film, including how the animation was created, how much effort was put into every single frame, and the sound design that brought every toy to life. We will explore the music department and see how the beautiful soundtrack of the film plays a huge role in making the story even more emotional and memorable. We will discuss the journey of the film from pre-production, where ideas were crafted and the storyline was carefully shaped, to filming and post-production, where the magic truly came to life through advanced animation techniques and incredible visual detailing. I will also tell you about the film's budget, how much it cost to make such a high-quality animated film, and how much it earned at the box office, making it one of the most successful animated films of its time. We will also walk through the story of the film, and I will give you a small, fun review of the storyline, sharing how the film beautifully balances humor, adventure, and deep emotional moments. We will talk about all the interesting facts that you probably didn't know about this movie, the surprises, the challenges faced by the creators, and what makes Toy Story 4 stand out even among the previous parts of the franchise. We will also go over the full star cast, especially the voice actors who brought these toys to life, and I will tell you who voiced which character, and how their performances added so much charm and depth to the film. So friends, I request you to watch this video till the end because I am going to take you through every single detail of this wonderful film, from where to watch it to what makes it a must-watch. There's so much to discover and enjoy in today's video, so let's not wait any longer, and let's start the video. The story of Toy Story 4 unfolds with a beautifully emotional beginning that sets the stage for everything that follows. Woody, the brave cowboy we've known since the first film, is now facing a life he never expected. He's no longer the favorite toy. Bonnie, the little girl who inherited Andy's toys, is growing up and doesn't reach for Woody as much anymore. This is a huge shift for Woody, who has always believed his purpose was to be there for his child. Right from the start, the film taps into this deep emotional thread about feeling left behind, forgotten, and struggling to find your place when everything around you is changing. When Bonnie heads off to kindergarten for her orientation, Woody secretly tags along because he wants to make sure she's okay. It's here that Bonnie, feeling lonely and scared, creates Forky out of some random craft items, a plastic spork, pipe cleaners, and googly eyes. Forky is not just another toy, he's a confused little creation who believes he belongs in the trash, not in a toy box. From the moment Forky opens his eyes, he's on a mission to throw himself away. Woody, seeing that Bonnie has become attached to Forky, takes it upon himself to protect him at all costs. Woody's purpose is now tied to Forky's safety, and this decision drives the entire story forward. As Bonnie's family sets off on a road trip in their RV, Forky keeps trying to escape, flinging himself into trash cans, ditches, and anywhere he thinks he belongs. Woody is constantly chasing after him, leading to a major turning point when Forky jumps out of the moving RV, forcing Woody to follow. This moment sets up the grand adventure, separating Woody and Forky from the rest of the toys and placing them in a small town filled with new dangers, unexpected allies, and life-changing choices. When Woody and Forky land in an antique store, they encounter Gabby Gabby, a doll from the 1950s who has never been loved because her voice box is broken. She sees Woody as the key to fixing herself. Gabby Gabby is not a typical villain. She's not evil but driven by a desperate desire to be wanted. She's surrounded by a group of eerie, silent ventriloquist dummies who follow her every order, adding a creepy edge to the otherwise playful world. Woody's conflict with Gabby Gabby is not about defeating a bad guy, but about understanding what it means to be valuable and loved. At this point, the story starts expanding in multiple directions. Woody reunites with Bo Peep, who has been living as a lost toy, after being given away years ago. Bo Peep is not the gentle shepherdess from the earlier films anymore. She's now adventurous, fearless, and perfectly happy living without a child, helping other toys find freedom at a traveling carnival. Her new perspective completely challenges Woody's belief that a toy's life must revolve around their child. This is where the narrative deepens. It's no longer a simple story of getting back to Bonnie. It's about Woody questioning his entire reason for existing. The film doesn't follow a complicated timeline, but it cleverly uses different locations and character journeys to explore these emotional layers. While Woody is focused on Forky and then Bo Peep, Buzz Lightyear has his own side adventure as he tries to rescue Woody, learning to follow his inner voice in the process, which leads to some hilarious moments as Buzz misinterprets his own sound button as his conscience. Buzz's journey adds humor and keeps the pace lively, weaving back into the main story with perfect timing. Meanwhile, Forky goes from seeing himself as trash to slowly realizing he is special to Bonnie. His transformation is simple but meaningful. Gabby Gabby's story also takes a surprising turn when, after getting her voice box repaired, she bravely approaches a little girl at the carnival, only to be rejected. It's a painfully real moment that not every story would dare to tell. A moment where hope is met with disappointment. But Woody doesn't let Gabby Gabby's story end there. He helps her find another child, one who truly needs her, showing that love and belonging sometimes come from the most unexpected places. The action kicks into high gear as the toys plan a daring rescue to get Forky back to Bonnie, racing through the carnival, sneaking into rides, and facing one obstacle after another in a sequence full of fast-paced, creative toy-sized adventure. Duke Kaboom, the Canadian stuntman toy, adds a burst of comic energy with his over-the-top motorcycle stunts and dramatic flair. His hilarious backstory, where he's haunted by the fact that he couldn't perform as advertised in his commercial, adds depth even to the new supporting characters. The most powerful turning point comes when Woody makes the ultimate decision. For the first time, he chooses his own path. Bo Peep offers him the chance to stay with her, to live freely and help other toys without belonging to any one child. Woody has spent his entire life believing he must always be there for his kid, but now he realizes that sometimes moving on is not a betrayal, it's the next step. It's a moment of growth, not just for Woody but for the entire theme of the series. The toy's purpose isn't as fixed as Woody once thought. It's about finding where you're most needed, and where you're truly happy. The film builds its emotional impact not by delivering a single grand twist, but by layering small, heartfelt choices throughout the journey. The story doesn't just give us adventure and laughs. It quietly explores growing up, letting go, and embracing change, all while keeping the spirit of fun, action, and friendship alive from beginning to end. The characters in Toy Story 4 are not just part of another playful adventure. They carry layers of emotional depth, personal battles, and life-changing realizations that keep the story alive from beginning to end. Each character has a unique arc that connects beautifully with the film's bigger questions about purpose, identity, and change. Woody stands at the very center of it all. He is the same brave, loyal cowboy we've loved since the beginning, but this time his inner world is filled with uncertainty. Woody has always seen himself as a leader, the toy who holds everything together, the toy who always knows what to do. But now things have changed. Bonnie, his new owner, is growing up, and Woody is no longer the toy she reaches for. He is slowly becoming irrelevant in the life he thought he was meant to protect. What makes Woody's character so interesting is that he refuses to give up his purpose, even when no one else expects him to keep going. He clings to the belief that his job is to always be there for his child, even when that child barely notices him anymore. His loyalty is powerful, but it also traps him. Throughout the story, Woody is forced to wrestle with the uncomfortable question: what happens when you are no longer needed? Woody's growth is not simple or quick. He struggles, he doubts, and he makes mistakes. His entire belief system is challenged when he meets Bo Peep again, who has become a completely new toy. Bo Peep has lived on her own, found freedom outside the boundaries of being owned, and she is strong, fearless, and content in her new life. Bo Peep shows Woody that maybe there's more to a toy's life than being in a kid's room. She is not trying to convince Woody right away, but her confidence and her independent spirit plant a seed in his mind. Woody's journey is not just about protecting Forky or finding Bonnie. It's about figuring out who he is when the role he has always known starts slipping away. His growth is about learning that it's okay to move on, that sometimes choosing your own path is not selfish, it's necessary. Forky, on the other hand, is the spark that sets Woody's new mission in motion. Forky is unlike any other toy we've seen before. He's handmade, built from a spork, pipe cleaners, and googly eyes, and his entire existence is an accident. He doesn't see himself as a toy at all. His whole identity is wrapped in the idea that he's trash, and he spends the first part of the story doing everything he can to throw himself away. Forky's growth is both hilarious and touching. At first, he can't understand why Woody keeps dragging him back to Bonnie. To him, his place is in the garbage. But as the story unfolds, Forky slowly realizes what it means to be loved, what it means to belong. His transformation is quiet but powerful, and his relationship with Woody is full of humor, warmth, and genuine emotion. Through Forky, the film beautifully shows that even things that seem worthless can have incredible value when someone loves them. Bo Peep's evolution is one of the most exciting surprises in the film. When she was last seen in the earlier films, she was a soft-spoken, delicate toy with a gentle role. In Toy Story 4, she is completely transformed. She has survived on her own for years, learned how to live without belonging to anyone, and built a new life as a lost toy, who is not sad about her freedom. Bo Peep is clever, resourceful, and always one step ahead. She is not waiting to be rescued. She's the one leading the rescue missions now. Her confidence shakes Woody, but it also inspires him. Their relationship is one of the emotional cores of the film. Bo Peep challenges Woody to see life differently. She shows him that there is more than one way to live as a toy. Her independence does not make her cold, it makes her free. She still cares deeply about Woody, and the chemistry between them is filled with warmth, respect, and a quiet, lingering history that makes their reunion feel so real. Gabby Gabby is another standout character whose journey is far more complex than it first appears. She is introduced as the one who wants something from Woody, his working voice box, because hers is broken. At first glance, it seems like she's the villain, especially with her eerie ventriloquist dummy henchman silently lurking around her. But Gabby Gabby is not evil. She's just incredibly lonely. She has spent years on a shelf in an antique store, longing for a child to love her, to finally pick her and play with her. Her desperation makes her take risky, selfish steps, but underneath her cold strategy is a deep sadness. Gabby Gabby's transformation comes when she finally gets what she wants. Her voice box is fixed, but when she approaches the child she has been hoping to connect with, the child walks away. It is a raw, honest moment. Life does not always give the happy ending you plan for, but with Woody's help, Gabby Gabby finds another child, one who truly needs her comfort. Her journey teaches that sometimes life gives us different paths to happiness, and her story leaves a lasting emotional impact. Buzz Lightyear's character takes a slightly different path in this film. His development leans more into humor, but it still carries an important message. Buzz spends much of the story learning to trust his inner voice, which he amusingly mistakes for the phrases triggered by pressing the buttons on his chest. This playful misunderstanding leads him on his own mission to find and help Woody, showing Buzz learning to rely on himself, not just his programmed instincts. His loyalty to Woody is as strong as ever, but Buzz's moments in this story remind us that even confident heroes need to discover how to make decisions from the heart. The supporting characters bring extra layers of humor and heart. Duke Kaboom is one of the most memorable additions, a flashy Canadian stuntman toy with a deep fear of failure, because he could never live up to the stunts shown in his TV commercial. Duke's over-the-top bravery and hilarious self-doubt make him a scene stealer, but there's real sadness in his story about dealing with disappointment and learning to take chances again. Ducky and Bunny, the Carnival prize toys, add constant energy and comedic chaos with their wild imaginations and impossible escape plans, but even they have dreams of being loved and played with. The character relationships are the beating heart of Toy Story 4. Woody's protective bond with Forky becomes almost like a father-son relationship, filled with patience, teaching moments, and eventual understanding. Woody and Bo Peep's relationship is layered with old affection and new respect, showing how people or toys can grow apart but still come back together in new ways. Woody and Buzz's friendship, even though they spend much of the story apart, remains unshakable. Buzz trusts Woody's instincts without question, and Woody knows that Buzz will always be there to support him. Even the unexpected connection between Woody and Gabby grows from a place of conflict into a powerful moment of shared empathy. What makes these characters unforgettable is that none of them are stuck in one role. Each one is allowed to grow, to question themselves, to fail, and to choose new paths. The toys in Toy Story 4 might be made of plastic, but their journeys are filled with real, human emotions: fear, love, purpose, doubt, and the courage to move forward into the unknown. The performances in Toy Story 4 are a major reason why the film feels so alive, so genuine, and so packed with emotion. These are not just voice actors reading lines. They are breathing life into these toys, giving them personalities that feel as real as any live-action character. Tom Hanks as Woody once again delivers a performance that is heartfelt, layered, and full of subtle emotion. Tom Hanks has always had a special magic when it comes to Woody's voice. He doesn't just make Woody sound like a leader. He makes him sound like a toy who is holding tightly to his purpose, even when that purpose is slipping away. In this film, Tom Hanks takes Woody to new emotional depths. Every time Woody speaks, there's this mixture of determination and quiet sadness, especially in the moments when he realizes he's no longer the favorite toy. Tom Hanks delivers those lines with such honesty that you can actually hear the weight of Woody's decisions, the struggle between duty and desire. When Woody faces the possibility of letting go, Tom Hanks captures that moment with a perfect balance of strength and vulnerability. Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear brings all the energy and charm you'd expect from the fearless Space Ranger, but this time he gets to explore Buzz's funnier, more self-reflective side. Buzz's mission to follow his inner voice leads to some of the most hilarious scenes in the film, and Tim Allen nails every moment. He gives Buzz a mixture of noble bravery and complete cluelessness, and it works perfectly. His comedic timing is sharp, especially when Buzz keeps pressing his own voice buttons, mistaking them for wisdom. Even though Buzz has less screen time compared to Woody, Tim Allen makes every second count, and his warm, steady voice is essential in keeping Buzz's character grounded. Annie Potts as Bo Peep is a standout. Bo Peep's transformation from a soft-spoken shepherdess to a fearless, independent adventurer is not just in the writing, it's in Annie Potts' voice. She gives Bo a new spark, a new confidence that makes her feel fresh and exciting while still holding on to the warmth we remember. Annie Potts doesn't make Bo sound like she's pretending to be strong. She makes her genuinely strong. You can hear it in the way she takes charge, in the playful but commanding tone she uses with Woody, and in the gentle, caring moments where her softer side shines through. Bo Peep's new energy is one of the film's biggest surprises, and Annie Potts carries it beautifully. Tony Hale as Forky brings a whole new layer of fun and emotion to the story. Forky is a strange, confused, hilarious little creation, and Tony Hale's performance captures every bit of his nervous energy and lovable awkwardness. Forky is constantly in panic mode, believing he's trash and not a toy, and Tony Hale plays this with perfect comedic rhythm. But what really makes Forky stand out is the innocence and sweetness in his voice. He sounds like a character who's brand new to the world, learning about love, loyalty, and friendship in real time. Tony Hale gives Forky a voice that is not only funny but also genuinely touching, especially when Forky slowly realizes how important he is to Bonnie. Christina Hendricks as Gabby brings a surprising amount of depth to a character who could have easily been a one-note villain. Gabby's soft, calm, slightly eerie voice makes her seem polite and even gentle, but there's always a hint of sadness just beneath the surface. Christina Hendricks delivers her lines with a quiet determination that makes Gabby incredibly sympathetic, even when she's doing things that seem selfish. There's a beautiful shift in her performance when Gabby's story takes an emotional turn, and Christina Hendricks handles that transition with subtle grace, allowing the audience to truly feel for her. Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele as Ducky and Bunny are an unstoppable comedic duo in this film. They bring rapid-fire humor, big energy, and a playful sense of chaos to every scene they're in. Their chemistry is electric, And it feels like they're having the time of their lives voicing these Carnival prize toys who have wild imaginations and zero filters. Key and Peele bounce off each other effortlessly, delivering jokes that feel natural, fast, and perfectly timed. Their storytelling scenes, where they imagine the most over-the-top plans, are some of the funniest moments in the movie, and their energy adds a fresh, modern twist to the Toy Story world. Keanu Reeves as Duke Kaboom is another brilliant casting choice. Keanu brings just the right mix of theatrical confidence and secret insecurity to this Canadian stuntman toy. His voice is full of exaggerated heroism, but there's always a subtle crack in it when Duke remembers the disappointment he once caused. Keanu leans into the character's flair, giving Duke big, bold line deliveries that make him instantly memorable, but he also manages to show the softer, more vulnerable side of a toy who just wants to prove he can be enough. His performance is funny, sincere, and full of charm. Even the smaller supporting roles are filled with performances that add richness to the film. The ventriloquist dummies that follow Gabby don't speak, but their silent presence is made more effective by the way they move, react, and stare, adding a layer of tension without needing words. The other toys from Bonnie's room, like Jessie, Rex, and Ham, all return with familiar voices that keep the connection to the earlier films alive, and their brief appearances continue to add color and humor to the story. Every voice actor in Toy Story 4 contributes to the emotional believability of the story. There is something magical about the way these performances fit together, creating a world where toys feel real, their emotions feel real, and their journeys feel deeply meaningful. Whether it's the steady warmth in Woody's voice, the frantic confusion in Forky's, the quiet strength in Bo Peep's, or the explosive comedy from Ducky and Bunny, each performance elevates the film and pulls the audience right into the heart of the story. The direction of Toy Story 4 is a carefully woven masterpiece that pulls audiences into a world they thought they already knew and then gently, beautifully, surprises them at every turn. Josh Cooley, stepping into the director's chair for the first time in this franchise, brings a bold, confident vision that blends emotional storytelling with thrilling new adventure. From the very first scene, Cooley sets the mood with an incredible balance of warmth, nostalgia, and curiosity. He doesn't just direct the film with the intention of adding another chapter to a beloved series. He dives deep into what makes these characters tick, what makes their world magical, and how their emotional journeys can still surprise us even after all these years. The tone of the film is one of its most carefully crafted elements, and Cooley guides it with a steady hand. He keeps the signature Toy Story humor alive, but he layers it with an emotional weight that feels new for this series. There is a bittersweet edge to almost every scene involving Woody. The way Cooley handles Woody's fading role in Bonnie's life is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, subtle, and deeply human. The silence in those moments speaks louder than words. Cooley isn't afraid to let the camera linger on Woody's face just a little longer, letting audiences feel that ache of being left behind. This slow, thoughtful approach makes the emotional beats land with full impact. One of Cooley's most brilliant choices is how he expands the world of the toys. Previous films often kept the toys in familiar, child-centric spaces, homes, schools, daycares. But in Toy Story 4, Cooley pushes the boundaries. He takes the toys into wide-open spaces like the Carnival, a place that feels almost endless to them, and into the mysterious, labyrinth-like antique shop, which feels both cozy and quietly menacing. Cooley directs these spaces with a true sense of scale. The way the camera moves through these settings always reminds us that the toys are tiny. The ground-level shots, the massive towering shelves, the endless carnival rides. All of these are framed from the toy's perspective, making simple obstacles feel like grand adventures. This choice keeps the audience locked into the world of the toys, always experiencing their challenges through their eyes. The pacing of the film is another area where Cooley's direction really shines. He has an incredible sense of rhythm, knowing exactly when to slow down for tender, intimate moments and when to ramp up the energy for big action sequences. He gives quiet conversations the room to breathe, letting Woody and Forky's walks down the road, or Woody and Bo Peep's emotional exchanges, unfold naturally without rushing. These moments feel honest because they aren't crammed into tight, fast edits. Cooley trusts the story enough to let it pause and absorb its own emotion. At the same time, he delivers action scenes with exhilarating speed and energy. The Carnival rescue, The high-stakes antique shop chases and Duke Kaboom's stunt sequences are fast, dynamic, and playful, keeping the momentum alive without ever overwhelming the story's emotional core. Cooley's shot composition is always working to make the world feel alive, layered, and full of depth. When the toys are navigating the antique shop, the camera moves through cracks, between towering objects, and around shadowy corners, creating the feeling of a maze where danger can pop out from anywhere. When the story shifts to the carnival, Cooley fills the frame with bold colors, flashing lights, and sweeping movement that make the setting feel alive and unpredictable. His attention to detail keeps every scene visually rich, with moments that feel as though you could pause the film at any frame and find a story happening in the background. The lighting choices in the film are carefully directed to match the emotional flow of the story. The antique shop scenes are filled with soft, golden light and long shadows, which give the place a sense of forgotten beauty mixed with subtle danger. The carnival scenes explode with energy, full of bright, electric lights that create an atmosphere of freedom, excitement, and new possibilities. Cooley's ability to shift these visual moods throughout the film adds an extra layer of storytelling that doesn't rely on dialogue. It's all built into the atmosphere. The way Cooley uses silence and pauses is another mark of his thoughtful direction. He doesn't fill every moment with music or dialogue. There are scenes where the silence carries the emotion more powerfully than words could. When Woody is quietly watching Bonnie pass him by, or when Gabby is rejected by the child she hoped would love her, the stillness of those moments hits hard. Cooley isn't afraid to let the audience sit in those feelings without rushing to the next laugh or chase scene. This confidence in pacing gives the film its emotional strength. One of Cooley's boldest decisions is to allow the story to focus on Woody's internal journey, instead of simply building another group mission. The earlier films often revolved around the toys working together to solve an external problem. Getting back to Andy, escaping a daycare, or rescuing a lost friend. Cooley shifts the lens inward, making Woody's struggle with his own purpose the driving force of the story. The film still delivers plenty of excitement, but it is Woody's emotional growth, his eventual realization that he can choose his own happiness, that gives the story its heartbeat. Cooley keeps this personal story front and center, never letting it get lost beneath the action. The humor throughout the film is directed with precision. Cooley allows the comedic moments to feel natural, not forced. Buzz Lightyear's hilarious quest to follow his inner voice is delivered with perfect timing, especially in the way Cooley lets the joke breathe. Buzz pausing, pressing his buttons, interpreting each catchphrase as life advice. The comedic duo of Ducky and Bunny is unleashed in full force, with Cooley giving them the freedom to play out wild, imaginative gags, like their plush rush attack plans. The humor is balanced so well that it never undercuts the emotional weight of the story. It complements it. Cooley's vision extends to how he blends the old and the new. He treats returning characters with respect and gives them small but meaningful moments, while also introducing new characters like Forky, Duke Kaboom, and Gabby with so much care and detail that they feel instantly at home in this world. None of the new characters are treated as simple additions. They are fully realized, with their own arcs, their own quirks, and their own emotional journeys. Every choice in Cooley's direction feels like it was made to carefully honor the heart of the Toy Story universe, while confidently expanding its emotional and visual horizons. He crafts a world that is playful, adventurous, and deeply moving, where toys are not just playthings but characters wrestling with purpose, fear, freedom, and love. Cooley doesn't shy away from letting these toys grow up. He shapes the film with a vision that invites audiences to laugh, to feel, and to see life through the eyes of characters who might be made of plastic, but who carry emotions that couldn't feel more real. The cinematography in Toy Story 4 is not just visually impressive, it's emotionally immersive. It transforms everyday objects and familiar places into vast, unpredictable worlds, all because of how the camera frames them from the toy's perspective. This approach makes even the smallest crack in a sidewalk or the tiniest gap between shelves feel monumental. The camera work constantly reminds the audience that these toys live in a world where everything is bigger, faster, and potentially more dangerous than it appears. The film uses this perspective to build tension, create humor, and highlight the courage required for these tiny characters to face such overwhelming spaces. One of the most fascinating elements of the cinematography is how the camera movement creates a sense of scale that stays consistent throughout the film. Whether the toys are sneaking through the towering maze of the antique shop or racing across a spinning carnival ride, the camera never lets the audience forget how small they are. Objects that seem ordinary to humans, lamps, books, carnival games, become enormous set pieces when filmed from the toy's eye level. The shelves in the antique store stretch into endless corridors, the carnival booths look like towering walls, and the simple task of crossing a sidewalk becomes a grand, perilous journey. The cinematography makes the toys' world feel epic without changing the actual size of their surroundings. It's all about where the camera places us, and it keeps us locked in the toy's scale at all times. The cinematography also plays with depth and space in brilliant ways. Scenes are often shot with multiple layers, objects in the foreground, midground, and background, making the environments feel fully alive and filled with possibilities and threats. This depth is used to guide the viewer's attention, sometimes focusing tightly on a single character while the background subtly reveals approaching danger or an opportunity. In the antique shop, this technique is used repeatedly to build suspense. The camera might show Woody in the foreground carefully moving through a maze of old furniture, while in the distance, the ventriloquist dummies silently glide into position. These layered shots create visual tension without needing fast cuts or loud music. The danger is always lurking just behind the carefully arranged objects. The use of lighting is another masterstroke in this film. The cinematographers build entire moods around light and shadow, creating visual contrasts that mirror the emotional highs and lows of the story. The antique shop's soft, golden glow feels warm but slightly eerie, like stepping into a memory that isn't quite safe. The way light filters through dusty windows and bounces off porcelain gives the shop a dreamy, timeless atmosphere. But those same warm lights can quickly shift to unsettling shadows when Gabby Gabby's ventriloquist henchmen appear. The carnival is an entirely different playground for the cinematography. It's bursting with color, pulsing with flashing lights and constant movement. The scenes shot at night capture the electric energy of the carnival, but also highlight the toy's sense of freedom and possibility. The way the camera glides through the carnival's spinning rides, glowing signs, and noisy crowds gives these moments a thrilling momentum, making the toy's missions feel fast, exciting, and alive. The visual storytelling also leans heavily into carefully composed close-ups, especially when emotions run high. When Woody feels forgotten or when Gabby Gabby faces rejection, the camera often moves in close, framing their faces tightly and allowing the audience to see every small movement, every flicker of uncertainty, every shift in their plastic expressions. Even though these characters are toys, the cinematography captures them with the same intimacy and weight usually reserved for live-action actors. These close-ups are not just for show. They are used to pull the viewer directly into the characters' emotional worlds. The audience isn't watching from a distance. They are right there, feeling the weight of each decision and heartbreak. The flashback sequence at the beginning of the film is visually stunning. The rain-soaked rescue mission is shot with a cinematic energy that feels grand and urgent. The raindrops look enormous from the toy's point of view, and the way water splashes, pools, and pours off the objects around them makes the storm feel overwhelming. The lighting is dark but peppered with glimmers of reflection, creating a perfect mix of danger and beauty. The camera moves quickly but carefully, tracking the toys as they dart across wet surfaces, weaving in and out of obstacles, building tension while keeping the action visually clear. It's a perfect. The editing and pacing of Toy Story 4 are some of the film's most finely tuned elements, and they work together to create a seamless, engaging, and emotionally rich experience that never loses momentum. The editing isn't just about stitching scenes together. It's about sculpting time, knowing exactly when to let a moment stretch, when to cut sharply, when to build tension, and when to release it. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance where every step, every pause, every quick pivot serves the story in an almost invisible way. The film moves with a natural rhythm that feels effortless, but that effortlessness comes from incredibly precise editing choices that shape the audience's emotional journey from beginning to end. The opening flashback sequence is a brilliant example of how the editing sets the tone. Right from the first frames, the pace is quick but deliberate, building an immediate sense of urgency as the toys rush to rescue RC from the storm. The rain is coming down in heavy sheets, The mud is slippery, the water is rising. Each cut is rapid and sharp, heightening the danger without creating visual confusion. The editors carefully pace these quick cuts to maintain clarity, ensuring that the viewer always knows exactly where each character is, what they're doing, and what's at stake. Just as the tension peaks, the scene gracefully slows to let Woody and Bo Peep share their goodbye. This transition is not jarring, it's smooth, allowing the story to breathe right after the adrenaline rush. The editors trust the moment enough to let the silence speak, holding the shot a few seconds longer than you'd expect, which makes the emotional beat linger beautifully. As the story progresses into Bonnie's world, the pacing adjusts again, moving into a steady, comfortable rhythm that reflects the calm of everyday toy life but never drags. Scenes of Bonnie creating Forky and Woody's quiet attempts to keep him safe are edited with gentle transitions, allowing for character building without rushing. But the moment Forky becomes the runaway spork, the editing tightens, the pace quickens, and the story shifts gears smoothly, sending Woody and Forky on their road trip adventure. The pacing mirrors the energy of Forky's frantic desire to dive into the trash and Woody's desperate mission to protect him. These moments are filled with quick, comedic cuts that capture the chaos of Forky's trash-seeking attempts, bouncing rapidly between Woody's reactions and Forky's determined leaps toward garbage cans, streets, and dumpsters. The editing here is sharp and playful, matching Forky's manic energy, but it always stays controlled enough to keep the viewer locked into the sequence without feeling overwhelmed. One of the film's most impressive pacing tricks is how it weaves between multiple storylines without ever making the audience feel like they're missing something. Woody's journey with Forky, Buzz's comically serious inner voice adventure, Bo Peep's independent life, Gabby's emotional quest, and Ducky and Bunny's wild carnival escapades all unfold in parallel. The editing seamlessly moves between these threads, using clever transitions that feel natural. Sometimes it's a visual cue, like moving from one toy's location to another using a shared object or sound. Other times, it's a rhythm match, like shifting from a quiet conversation to a burst of carnival excitement, using the rise and fall of sound to bridge the stories. These transitions keep the film's energy alive and make the audience feel like the whole world is moving together, even when the toys are on separate missions. The film's comedy heavily relies on editing rhythm, and nowhere is this more evident than in the scenes with Ducky and Bunny. Their wild, over-the-top plush rush attack plans are edited with pinpoint timing. The cuts between their storytelling imaginations and the reactions of other characters are perfectly paced to maximize the humor. The editors know exactly how long to hold on a visual gag, when to switch perspectives, and when to jump back to reality for the punchline. Buzz's repeated button-pressing moments are another masterclass in comedic pacing. The quick, dramatic cuts as he cycles through his sound phrases and interprets them as life advice work because the timing is so tight. It lets the audience fully absorb the absurdity before moving on. When the film moves into its most emotionally charged moments, the pacing slows with great care. Scenes like Woody's silent realizations about Bonnie's growing distance, Gabby's heartbreaking rejection, and the quiet choices Woody faces near the end are all allowed to stretch out. The editors don't rush to the next joke or the next plot point. Instead, they linger, sometimes for several extra seconds, to let the emotions fully settle in. These pauses make a huge difference. They invite the audience to lean in, to feel the weight of the choices the characters are making. It's a subtle but powerful editing choice that shows a deep understanding of how to guide emotional impact through pacing. The climax at the carnival is a symphony of tight editing and perfectly paced action. The sequence juggles multiple moving parts. Woody's mission, Buzz's return, Bo Peep's leadership, Duke Kaboom's stunts, Forky's rescue, and the supporting toys' antics. The editors weave all these threads together with incredible clarity, using sharp, energetic cuts that maintain suspense while ensuring the audience never loses track of who's where or what's happening. The pacing accelerates just enough to create excitement, but never spins out of control. Even within the action, there are perfectly timed pauses for humor or quick emotional beats that break up the rush and give the sequence depth. The film's final emotional decisions are treated with a quiet, steady pacing that gives the resolution its full emotional weight. The editing carefully holds on Woody's face as he chooses his path, allowing the silence to communicate everything. There's no quick exit, no rush to the finish line. The editors give the audience the gift of time to sit with that choice, to absorb the impact of the story's final turn. The farewell between Woody and Buzz is another moment where the editing holds back, letting the scene unfold naturally, with measured beats between lines, meaningful glances, and soft, thoughtful pacing. Even in the end credits, the editing remains playful and sharp. The small post-story vignettes that resolve minor character threads are cut with the same comedic timing and energy that ran throughout the film. They feel like part of the world, not an afterthought. The editing in Toy Story 4 is like an invisible guide, perfectly pacing the highs and lows, the laughter and the tears, the action and the stillness, with absolute precision. The rhythm of the film is what keeps the audience fully engaged, emotionally connected, and completely invested in the journey. It's the kind of editing that doesn't scream for attention. It quietly shapes the story, knowing exactly when to speed up, when to slow down, and when to simply let a moment breathe. The result is a film that flows effortlessly, holds attention from start to finish, and carries emotional weight with grace, all thanks to the meticulous craftsmanship behind its pacing and editing. The soundtrack and score of Toy Story 4 are not just musical decorations layered on top of the story. They are the emotional backbone quietly pulsing beneath every scene, shaping how the audience feels without ever needing to shout for attention. The music works as a silent narrator, weaving through the film with precision, carefully stepping in when it needs to lift a moment or stepping away when the silence can carry more weight. Every note, every rhythm, every pause has been carefully chosen to serve the story's emotional depth, the characters' growth, and the world's playful energy. Randy Newman's return to the Toy Story universe brings an immediate sense of familiarity. His distinct musical voice is like the heartbeat of the entire series, and in Toy Story 4, he continues to blend lightheartedness with subtle melancholy in a way that feels completely effortless but is incredibly powerful. His themes never feel recycled. They feel evolved, as if the music has grown alongside the characters. When the familiar strains of "You've Got a Friend in Me" quietly echo through the film, it's never forced. The music doesn't hit the audience over the head with nostalgia. It gently reminds them of the journey these toys have been on. It's as if the song has aged with Woody and Buzz, carrying the weight of their shared history in its softened, almost wistful delivery. Newman's playful energy comes alive in the original song, "I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away," which perfectly captures the manic spirit of Woody chasing Forky through the story. The song isn't just a fun tune. It's a musical mirror of Woody's desperation and stubbornness. The upbeat tempo and repetitive rhythm almost feel like Woody's heartbeat as he frantically tries to save Forky from his self-destructive trash obsession. The lightness of the melody contrasts beautifully with the deeper emotional undertone that Woody is not just saving Forky. He's clinging to his own sense of purpose. The song bounces along with the chaos, but carries that hidden layer that makes it stick long after the scene is over. Throughout the film, the score has a unique way of following the characters' emotional shifts without overpowering the dialogue or the natural sounds of the environment. When Woody begins to sense that Bonnie no longer needs him as much as she once did, the music gently steps in with delicate piano notes and soft, swelling strings. It doesn't try to force sadness. It lingers in the background, allowing Woody's internal struggle to surface naturally. The music understands restraint, letting the emotional weight build quietly. Sometimes, just a single instrument will carry an entire moment, leaving space for the silence to echo through Woody's hesitation or Bonnie's quiet playtime. The way the music adapts to the film's changing locations is another subtle triumph. The antique shop is introduced with a soundscape that feels dusty and mysterious, using soft, meandering melodies that seem to tiptoe around the stacks of old treasures. The score here often carries a slightly off-kilter rhythm, with muted tones and eerie, tinkling sounds that make the shop feel magical, but also slightly unsettling. When Gabby Gabby enters the frame, her theme is introduced with a careful balance. It isn't villainous or ominous. It's curious, almost delicate, suggesting that there's more to her than a surface-level antagonist. The music wraps around her story with a sense of longing rather than fear, gently signaling to the audience that her motives come from a place of hope rather than malice. The carnival scenes explode with color, not just visually but musically. The score brightens, picking up speed and energy to match the whirlwind of rides, games, and crowds. There's a playful bounce to the rhythms, with bold percussion and joyful brass that pull the audience right into the chaos of the carnival. The music doesn't just accompany the scene, it becomes part of the carnival's pulse. When Duke Kaboom leaps into his high-flying stunts, the score roars to life with sweeping, exaggerated heroic music that plays up the comedy of his over-the-top confidence. The music embraces Duke's bravado and matches his every movement, turning his toy-sized jumps into grand, cinematic moments filled with soaring horns and triumphant crescendos. It's not mocking him, it's celebrating him in a way that makes the action both thrilling and hilarious. Bo Peep's story comes with its own distinct musical voice. Her theme carries a lightness, a sense of adventure, and an independent spirit. The music around her often introduces breezy melodies and flowing rhythms that match her free, untethered lifestyle. Unlike the structured themes tied to the world of Bonnie's bedroom, Bo Peep's soundtrack feels wide open, full of possibilities and movement. The sound opens up when she appears, signaling that her path is no longer bound to the old rules. The way the score shifts around her reflects her freedom, her boldness, and her choice to live outside the traditional boundaries of what a toy is supposed to be. The emotional core of the film is carried by the score's ability to step forward and disappear at exactly the right moments. When Woody faces the life-changing decision to stay with Bo Peep or return to Bonnie, the music does not rush the scene with a dramatic swell. It arrives gently, with soft strings and patient pacing, letting the silence between notes stretch just enough to make the audience feel the weight of Woody's choice. The absence of heavy musical cues gives space for the performances to breathe, and that silence becomes the most powerful sound in the film. The editors and sound designers work hand in hand with the score, ensuring that when the music finally does step in, it lands perfectly, adding warmth, gravity, and quiet finality to the moment. Gabby Gabby's story arc is beautifully supported by the score. Her scenes are wrapped in soft, melancholic melodies that highlight her vulnerability. When she's rejected by the child she hoped would love her, the music slows almost to a stop, hovering in the air like a question left unanswered. The film does not fill this space with loud cues or distracting sound. It lets the quiet hang there, making the heartbreak feel raw and real. When she finally finds a child who needs her, the music swells with relief and gentle joy, never overpowering the moment, but lifting it just enough to feel complete. Even Buzz Lightyear's comedic storyline is elevated by the playful, fast-paced musical cues that match his bumbling attempts to follow his inner voice. The quick sound bites, the fast, rhythmic shifts, and the punchy, almost cartoonish musical accents follow Buzz's misadventures with perfect comedic timing. The music doesn't just follow the action. It leads the joke, guiding the audience's reactions with carefully timed beats and musical winks. In the post-credit scenes, the music continues to deliver that playful, joyful energy, tying up loose ends with a light bounce that feels like an encore rather than an afterthought. The score continues to live in the world of the toys, even after the main story is finished, making the universe feel alive and ongoing. The sound mixing throughout the film ensures that the music always lives in harmony with the sound effects and dialogue. The way the score weaves between the natural sounds of toys clattering, carnival rides spinning, and the quiet creaks of the antique shop feels effortless. Toy Story 4 carefully unpacks some of the most layered and profound themes the franchise has ever explored, digging deep into questions about self-worth, identity, belonging, love, loss, freedom, and what it truly means to find purpose. These themes aren't plastered across the screen in bold letters. They are gently woven into the smallest character choices, the quiet moments between the big scenes, and the emotional undercurrents that ripple throughout the entire story. What makes these themes resonate is the way they grow out of the characters' personal journeys, not as lessons handed to the audience, but as discoveries the characters slowly arrive at for themselves. Woody's journey is the film's emotional centerpiece, and through him, the story dives into the deeply human fear of becoming obsolete. Woody has always built his identity around being a caretaker, a leader, the toy who always knows what to do. In Andy's world he had a clear purpose, and he thrived in it. But now in Bonnie's room, Woody is no longer the favorite. His role has shrunk, his voice box gathers dust, and his once unshakable sense of purpose begins to quietly crumble. The way the film handles this slow erosion of identity is subtle but powerful. Woody doesn't declare that he's lost. He shows it through his desperate protection of Forky, through his endless need to fix things, through his refusal to accept that he might no longer be needed in the same way. The film gently asks, when the role you've clung to no longer fits, who are you without it? Woody's journey becomes a quiet exploration of how people sometimes tie their entire worth to what they do for others. And when that role fades, they feel unmoored. It's about facing that terrifying gap between who you've always been and who you might become. Forky, in his own wonderfully odd way, embodies the theme of self-acceptance. He is literally built from trash. He was not intended to be a toy, he was not created with purpose in mind, and he spends the first part of the story desperately trying to return to the trash can because that's where he believes he belongs. Forky doesn't understand his value. He doesn't see himself the way Bonnie does. And yet, Bonnie loves him, not because of what he is made of, but because of what he means to her. This idea, that our worth isn't determined by where we come from or what we were supposed to be, but by the connections we make and the roles we grow into, is a quiet, beautiful thread that runs through Forky's story. He begins as a joke, but by the end he represents a profound truth. Sometimes the most unlikely people can mean the world to someone. Gabby's arc is one of the film's most surprising emotional layers. She isn't the villain in the traditional sense. Her goal isn't to destroy, to dominate, or to control. It's to be loved. She has spent her life on a dusty shelf, convinced that her broken voice box has made her unworthy. She believes that fixing herself will earn her the love she's always craved. Her entire sense of worth is tied to being perfect enough to be chosen. The film doesn't frame her as evil. It paints her as heartbreaking. And when she is ultimately rejected by the child she hoped would love her, it becomes a painful reflection of what many people fear. That even if we fix our flaws, even if we become better, we might still face rejection. But Gabby's story doesn't end there. She finds her place not through perfection, but through being in the right moment for a lost child who needs her. The film gently shows that belonging is not always about being chosen in the way we imagined. It's about being open to new moments and new connections, even when they don't come in the package we expected. Bo Peep's storyline pushes the theme of freedom and self-reinvention into full view. Bo is no longer the delicate, nursery-bound figure from the earlier films. She has shed that old life, and the film respects her for it. She isn't painted as a toy who is incomplete without a child. She's shown as someone who has carved out her own space in the world, who has chosen adventure and independence over the traditional life of waiting on a shelf. Bo challenges Woody's core belief that a toy's entire worth comes from serving one child. She opens his eyes to the idea that toys can write their own stories, find their own joy, and that loyalty, while beautiful, should not become a cage. Through Bo, the film gently asks, is it okay to choose your own happiness, even if it means stepping away from the people and roles you've always loved? Buzz Lightyear's subplot, which at first seems like comic relief, actually taps into the surprisingly rich theme of trusting yourself. Buzz's misadventures with his inner voice poke fun at the idea of overthinking, but they also highlight something deeper. The idea that our instincts, our gut feelings, are often smarter than we give them credit for. Buzz spends the film pressing his voice buttons to get direction. But in the end, what guides him isn't a pre-programmed phrase, it's his own sense of right and wrong. The film uses his bumbling journey to gently suggest that sometimes, the answers we're looking for aren't written on a script, they're already inside us. One of the most moving themes the film explores is the bittersweet necessity of letting go. Woody's decision to stay behind with Bo Peep is not painted as a loss, it's a step forward. It's about recognizing that holding on too tightly to the past can prevent you from embracing new possibilities. The film never suggests that Woody's love for Andy or Bonnie was less valuable because he chose to move on. In fact, it shows that those memories are part of what makes his new choice so meaningful. The message isn't that love ends, it's that love evolves. The film gently offers the idea that sometimes, moving forward is the best way to honor what came before. There's also a quiet but important theme of agency and choice. Every major character in Toy Story 4 makes a conscious decision about who they want to be. Bo chooses freedom. Gabby chooses compassion. Buzz chooses to trust himself. Forky chooses to embrace his identity as a toy. Woody chooses to step into a new life. None of these arcs are forced by circumstances. They are shaped by the characters' willingness to ask themselves who they really are, and what they truly want. The film respects the power of choice, and it shows that purpose isn't something handed to us. It's something we can shape, redefine, and pursue on our own terms. Even Duke Kaboom, who at first seems like comic relief, is tied to this theme. Duke is paralyzed by his failure to live up to the commercial that promised he could make impossible jumps. He's stuck in the shadow of his own expectations, haunted by what he couldn't deliver. But through the course of the film, he finds the courage to break free from that past, to take the leap again, not because he's guaranteed success, but because he's willing to try. His story, though small, echoes the film's larger message about self-worth and the courage to move forward even when you've failed before. The story also quietly explores the idea that there is no one-size-fits-all version of happiness or success. Woody finds fulfillment outside of the traditional toy-child relationship. Bo finds joy in freedom and adventure. Gabby finds belonging in a moment of unexpected compassion. Forky finds his place in being exactly who he is, imperfect, nervous, and entirely unique. The visual effects and CGI in Toy Story 4 go beyond being technically impressive. They are the very foundation that breathes life into the story's most subtle emotions, its grandest adventures, and even its quietest moments. Pixar doesn't just animate toys. They craft a world where every texture, every shadow, every glint of light, and every ripple of water feels so meticulously real that the audience fully believes in the secret life of toys. What's extraordinary is not just how good everything looks, but how these visuals are used to silently tell the story, to add meaning, to give depth to every corner of this world without ever needing to say a word. Take the rainstorm that opens the film. It's not just a visually exciting sequence. It sets the tone for what Pixar's animation is now capable of. The way the raindrops hit the ground, the way water collects on Woody's plastic skin, the way mud clings to his boots, it all feels alive. The rain doesn't fall in lazy streaks. It pelts, it splashes, it flows in unpredictable ways, and the toys move carefully, their tiny bodies impacted by every puddle and slick surface. The gutter rescue scene, with its rushing water and shimmering reflections, feels dangerous and thrilling not because the characters tell us it is, but because the visual effects make the water look heavy, fast, and almost too powerful for the toys to handle. It's animation that understands the scale of its world. The water moves like a river to the toys, even though to humans it would barely be a trickle. This attention to scale is where Pixar's visual mastery shines. The film always remembers that the toys are small, and the world around them is enormous and full of hazards. Inside the antique shop, the visual design is absolutely staggering. Every surface tells a story. The glass cabinets are slightly smudged, the wood is worn and weathered, and the dust particles lazily floating in the shafts of light give the entire shop a sense of age and mystery. The level of detail here is astonishing. The toys that populate the shelves aren't just generic decorations. They each have carefully crafted features, unique textures, faded paint, and slight imperfections that suggest decades of history. Gabby's porcelain is chipped in just the right places. Her dress's fabric is ever so slightly frayed at the edges, and her eyes carry a glassy reflection that gives her a delicate, almost eerie quality. Benson, her silent ventriloquist dummy companion, moves with stiff, jerky motions, his wood grain texture visible up close, and his joints creak in a way that feels tactile and unsettling. The antique shop is more than just a setting. It's a living, breathing character shaped by its layers of dust, its creaking floors, and its warm, golden lighting. The shop holds secrets in every corner, and the CGI makes those secrets feel just within reach. Forky is another triumph of visual storytelling through texture and movement. Forky is not a sleek, manufactured toy. He's a clumsy, handmade creation of pipe cleaners, googly eyes, and popsicle sticks. The way he moves captures the awkward physics of a toy that was never built to walk. His pipe cleaner arms wobble and bend unpredictably, his feet bend under pressure, his eyes sometimes shift ever so slightly, and his entire body moves with the stiffness of a spork trying to function like a person. When he throws himself into trash cans, the way his materials clatter and bounce feels completely real. The visual effects team had to capture not just how Forky looks, but how his cheap, thrown-together construction would realistically behave in motion. He doesn't move like Woody, he doesn't move like Buzz. He moves like something Bonnie made at craft time. And that physicality becomes part of his identity. The carnival sequences are a feast of visual complexity. They explode with swirling lights, vibrant colors, spinning rides, and bustling crowds. Pixar layers these scenes with incredible depth, creating a playground where everything feels chaotic, but perfectly controlled. The neon signs buzz and flicker, the ride lights reflect in the shiny surfaces of the toys, and the prize stands overflow with plush animals of every shape, color, and fabric type. Ducky and Bunny, the carnival prizes, are textured with hyper-realistic fuzz that moves and ripples with every bounce and hug. When they flop around in frustration or excitement, you can see the softness in their fabric, the slight stretch of their seams, the way their fur responds to even the smallest movements. Their plushness isn't just a visual choice, it's a character trait, making their energy feel even more chaotic because their bodies are soft and elastic. Duke Kaboom's motorcycle stunts are handled with the perfect mix of spectacle and toy-sized physics. When Duke launches into the air, the CGI captures the tension in his plastic joints, the stiffness of his limbs, and the way his cape ripples dramatically behind him. The motorcycle's wheels spin with the right amount of toy-like bounce, and when he lands, the suspension barely absorbs the impact, sending him toppling in a way that's both hilarious and perfectly scaled. The visual effects let Duke live out his over-the-top heroic fantasies, while still obeying the limitations of his toy construction. He doesn't defy the laws of physics, he pushes them as far as a toy can, and that's what makes his stunts thrilling. The lighting in Toy Story 4 is perhaps one of its most powerful visual storytelling tools. The carnival glows with a magical, dreamlike palette. The antique shop is bathed in soft, diffused sunlight that filters through dusty windows. Bo Peep's nighttime adventures are wrapped in cool blues and gentle purples, making her world feel free and untethered. Each environment is visually distinct, and each lighting choice supports the tone of the scene. When Woody and Bo Peep stand under the carousel's warm lights in the film's final moments, the soft glow feels like a visual hug. It's the kind of light that feels like home, even when home isn't a child's bedroom anymore. The level of care given to the smallest details is what truly elevates the visual experience. The scratches on Woody's badge, the stitching on his jeans, the wear on Bo's shepherd's crook, the slightly dull finish on Buzz's plastic helmet, all these touches make the toys feel like they've been loved, like they've been through years of play. Nothing is pristine, and that's the magic of it. The imperfections make the world feel lived in. Even the background characters, those who only appear for seconds, are given careful textures and unique designs. The carnival toys hanging from the game booths each have slightly different stuffing densities, fabrics, and colors that make them look mass-produced but still distinct. The humans, often a secondary concern in animated films like this, are animated with a level of smoothness and believability that makes them feel more integrated into the toys world than ever before. The visual effects never feel like they're there to simply impress. They serve the story at every moment. When the scene calls for excitement, the visuals explode with motion and color. When the scene calls for introspection, the visuals soften, slow down, and use quiet lighting to let the emotion rise. The CGI in Toy Story 4 isn't just background dressing. It's actively shaping how the audience feels, how they connect to the characters, and how they move through the story's emotional highs and lows. The set design and locations in Toy Story 4 are not just colorful backdrops. They are living, breathing spaces that shape the entire emotional rhythm of the story. Every location feels thoughtfully constructed, not just to look good, but to tell a story, to create challenges, to evoke feelings, and to reflect where the characters are in their journeys. The environments do more than hold the action. They push the story forward, providing both comfort and danger, safety and mystery, all while feeling completely believable in the unique world where toys are tiny and everyday places become vast landscapes of adventure. Bonnie's room is the first space where we return, and it immediately feels smaller, quieter, and somehow more distant than Andy's room from the earlier films. Bonnie's room has her own touch. It's filled with softer colors, arts and crafts projects, and plenty of new toys, but it doesn't carry the same sense of ownership Woody once thrived on. The careful placement of Bonnie's favorite toys near her bed, with Woody slowly drifting to the edges, visually signals how Woody's place in her life is fading. It's a bright, playful room, but the layout quietly shows that Woody is no longer at the center. The set isn't just decorated, it's narrating Woody's emotional distance without saying a word. The kindergarten where Bonnie creates Forky is another carefully designed location that feels like a world of its own. Everything is oversized to the toys, from the craft supplies to the chairs, and the set designers use this scale to their advantage. The colorful walls, the scattered art materials, the high shelves, it all serves as both a playground and a battlefield for Woody's mission to protect Forky. The bins of discarded craft items give life to Forky himself, and the setting feels chaotic, unpredictable, and full of potential hazards that to a toy feel monumental. The way the kindergarten is structured makes Bonnie's imagination feel boundless, while also creating believable obstacles for the tiny characters moving within it. When the story moves to the RV, the set design shifts again. The cramped space full of drawers, shelves, and nooks becomes a moving maze where the toys must navigate tight spots and leap between compartments. The RV feels like a traveling home for Bonnie's family, but from the toys' perspective, it's a fortress with secret passages, sudden turns, and high stakes. The RV's design allows for clever hiding places and quick escapes, and its mobility raises the tension throughout the film. The visual layout of the RV helps the audience feel the constant ticking clock and the looming possibility of being left behind. The antique shop is perhaps the most visually rich and narratively significant location in the film. It is a beautifully layered space, filled with dusty shelves, worn furniture, fragile glass cabinets, and forgotten relics. The lighting in the shop is soft, filtered through dusty windows, creating a space that feels frozen in time. The set design makes the antique shop feel enormous and intimidating to the toys while offering endless hideaways and secret routes. The way the shop is structured allows for suspenseful chases, quiet moments of discovery, and emotional conversations tucked between shelves of forgotten items. The small details, the peeling labels, the cracked paint, the slightly faded fabrics, add to the shop's authenticity, making it feel like a real place that's been standing for decades. It's not a generic antique shop. It's one with its own history, its own ghosts, its own atmosphere. The shop's design also helps tell Gabby Gabby's story. Her home inside a forgotten cabinet, her quiet, lonely corner surrounded by perfectly arranged tea sets and antique dolls. It's the visual expression of her isolated life. The shop's grandness makes her corner feel even smaller and sadder. The antique shop's creaking floors and maze-like structure also give the Benson dummies the perfect environment to appear and vanish, adding to their eerie presence. Every corner of the shop feels used, lived in, and weighed down by time. The Carnival is an explosion of life and color, offering the most visually dynamic set in the film. The lights flash, the rides spin, the booths overflow with plush prizes, and the entire setting feels like a world in motion. The Carnival isn't just a pretty backdrop. It's a giant living organism that's constantly shifting, challenging the toys to move quickly, adapt, and blend in. The Carnival's design allows for large-scale action, but it's packed with small details that make it feel real. The rough textures of the game booths, the uneven stitching on the prize toys, the worn surfaces of the ride cars. All these touches make the Carnival come to life. The tight spaces between booths, the towering prizes, the swinging rides. These elements create thrilling obstacles for the toys while reinforcing their smallness in a big world. The back of the Carnival, away from the flashing lights, becomes Bo Peep's home base, and this area feels completely different in tone. It's less polished, more practical, filled with little toy-sized vehicles and makeshift shelters. Bo's world is about movement and freedom, and the design of her hideout reflects that. It's an open, flexible space with portable pieces that she can take with her anywhere, a visual contrast to Woody's old, static life. The Carnival's backstage world feels like a perfect place for Bo's free-spirited lifestyle. It's tucked just out of sight, yet it's buzzing with possibility. The playground where Gabby Gabby finally finds a child is a beautiful, quiet set, designed to feel safe, warm, and intimate. The set designers make this space feel soft and approachable, with gentle lighting and carefully placed props like the lost doll that Gabby Gabby uses to connect with the crying child. It's a peaceful corner of the Carnival that contrasts with the bright chaos nearby, giving Gabby Gabby the chance to have her tender moment in a space that feels perfectly suited for it. Every location in Toy Story 4 is carefully crafted to respect the scale of the toys world. The trash cans, the shelves, the drawers, the fairground equipment, they all become significant because to the toys, these are mountains to climb, caverns to explore, or traps to escape. The set design constantly reminds the audience that what seems ordinary to humans is epic to the toys. The production design is packed with small, thoughtful details that make every space feel authentic. The way labels peel on old boxes, the way the glue dries on Bonnie's craft table, the way worn stickers cling to the Carnival rides. It all adds texture and realism. These aren't shiny, perfect environments. They are layered, worn, lived in, and every chip, stain, and scratch tells a story. The settings in Toy Story 4 are more than just places to move the plot forward. They are spaces that mirror the characters' emotions, challenge their journeys, and shape the story's rhythm. The detailed design of each location gives the world depth, variety, and life, making the toys' adventures feel like they're unfolding in a fully realized, tangible universe. Whether it's the comfort of Bonnie's bedroom, the mystery of the antique shop, the chaos of the carnival, or the quiet freedom of the backstage world, every setting feels like it was built to help these characters find their paths. The dialogue and script in Toy Story 4 are a perfect blend of sharp humor, heartfelt emotion, and deceptively simple lines that carry enormous weight. The writing is crisp, natural, and deeply connected to each character's journey. Every word feels chosen to either make the audience laugh, pull at their heartstrings, or reveal something about the characters without having to over-explain. The magic of the Toy Story 4 script is that it trusts the audience to feel the meaning behind the words, often using quiet, everyday language to deliver some of the story's biggest emotional punches. One of the things the film does brilliantly is balance the tones of humor and heartbreak within the same conversation. Forky, with his completely unique perspective, brings some of the most hilariously innocent lines to the film. His constant insistence that he is trash is not just a running joke. It's a window into his self-perception, and the dialogue lets that insecurity play out in a way that is both funny and oddly profound. The way he says, "I'm litter," while trying to throw himself into a bin is played for laughs, but as Woody tries to convince him otherwise, the humor melts into something surprisingly meaningful. Forky's confusion about what he is, and his simple, childlike speech, make his journey of self-acceptance land even harder because the script never forces big, dramatic monologues on him. His words are plain, but their simplicity is exactly what gives them emotional power. Woody's dialogue is packed with quiet desperation in this film. He is clinging so tightly to his old purpose, and the way he speaks often betrays his inner conflict. He tries to sound confident, to remind everyone what a toy's duty is, but his insistence starts to sound like he's trying to convince himself more than anyone else. His repeated advice to Forky that a toy's job is to be there for their kid becomes less of a guiding principle and more of a cage that he's afraid to leave. The script is smart enough not to spell this out. Woody's own words start to feel like an echo of the life he's trying to hold on to, and the audience can feel when that belief begins to crack. Bo Peep's lines are delivered with a spark that was never fully explored in the earlier films. The script gives her a confidence and independence that is clear in how she talks. She doesn't waste words. Her dialogue is quick, direct, and filled with subtle jabs that challenge Woody's rigid worldview. When she asks him, "Who needs a kid's room when you can have all of this?" while showing him the wide, open world of the carnival, it's not a question looking for an answer. It's a direct challenge to his belief system. Bo's dialogue is peppered with a sense of adventure and freedom that makes every conversation between her and Woody crackle with energy. Their back and forth feels natural and lived in, like two old friends who can read each other instantly. Buzz Lightyear's subplot about discovering his inner voice brings some of the film's funniest dialogue. His misunderstanding that his pre-recorded voice buttons are guiding his decisions leads to some brilliant comedic exchanges. The humor works because Buzz delivers his lines with complete sincerity. When he hits his button and hears, "Return to your owner," he accepts it as life advice. His literal interpretation of these phrases creates moments of pure comedy. But the script subtly ties this running joke to Buzz's growth as he begins to trust himself rather than relying on programmed commands. The dialogue never feels forced. The humor flows naturally from Buzz's earnestness and the clever way the writers play with his established character. Gabby's lines are some of the most surprisingly tender moments in the film. She is not written as a villain who shouts threats or boasts about her power. Her voice is soft, careful, and often laced with longing. When she tells Woody, "You have what I've always wanted," It's a quiet admission of envy and sadness, not a declaration of evil intent. The script gives her layers of vulnerability, and her conversations with Woody are carefully written to build empathy rather than fear. When Gabby eventually decides to take a chance on being loved, the words she uses are simple, but the emotional weight is undeniable. Ducky and Bunny are written with wild energy, and their dialogue bounces back and forth at breakneck speed. Their schemes about how to retrieve keys from the antique shop owner are some of the film's funniest moments, and the way they play off each other creates a rhythm that feels completely improvised. Yet it's tightly scripted to land each punchline. Their dialogue isn't just a rapid-fire joke machine. It perfectly captures the chaotic energy of Carnival prizes that have spent too long waiting to be won. The script also doesn't shy away from quiet moments. When Woody and Buzz say goodbye, their words are soft, hesitant, and heartbreakingly simple. Buzz's final line to Woody, "She'll be okay," referring to Bonnie, carries the full weight of Woody's decision in just 4 words. It's a perfect example of how the film's writing uses restraint to create emotional impact. The silence that follows says just as much as the words themselves. These short, honest exchanges hit hard because the script knows that sometimes the most memorable lines aren't the longest. They're the ones that come at just the right moment. Throughout the film, the dialogue is laced with callbacks to the earlier Toy Story films, but these references are never heavy-handed. They feel natural, like the way old friends bring up shared memories. The script allows these callbacks to be quiet nods to the past rather than loud, forced reminders. Woody's concern for Forky echoes his old mission to protect Buzz. Bo's adventurous spirit mirrors Jessie's love for the open road. And Buzz's journey to find his inner voice feels like a new spin on his very first identity crisis. The humor in the script is balanced with incredible care. It never undermines the serious moments, and it always feels like it's coming from the characters, not from the writers trying to wedge in a joke. Whether it's Forky's complete lack of understanding of his own value, Buzz's inner voice misadventures, or Ducky and Bunny's over-the-top battle plans, the comedy feels organic to their personalities. The emotional weight of the film is carried not through big speeches, but through lines that feel conversational, unpolished, and real. The script doesn't need to over-explain. It lets the characters speak simply and trusts that the audience will feel the depth behind their words. Whether it's Woody insisting that his only job is to be there for his kid, Bo reminding him that there's a life outside of the playroom, Forky finding joy in being Bonnie's favorite trash, or Buzz quietly giving Woody permission to let go. The dialogue consistently serves the story's heart. The writing in Toy Story 4 shines because it feels effortless. It knows when to be funny, when to be tender, and when to let silence carry the message. The script respects its characters, lets them speak in their own unique rhythms, and crafts conversations that stick with the audience long after the toys have walked off into their next adventure. The standout lines don't demand attention. They earn it by landing at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way. Toy Story 4 plays in the sandbox of an adventure comedy animated film, but it never just settles for ticking the boxes of its genre. Instead, it constantly dances between honoring the traditions of the franchise and slyly reshaping them, balancing high-stakes action, heartfelt drama, surprising suspense, and sharp humor with a confidence that feels fresh without ever feeling like it's trying too hard to break the mold. It doesn't just deliver what's expected from a Toy Story film. It layers the familiar with new twists that give the 4th installment its own pulse and identity. The film opens with a familiar adventure beat, a daring rescue in a rainstorm. On the surface, this seems like classic Pixar territory, a high-energy, visually dazzling sequence where teamwork and quick thinking save the day. But right from this opening, the film quietly signals that it's going to be a little different. The rainstorm isn't just there to thrill. It's setting the emotional tone, showing Woody's deep-rooted need to feel useful, which will ripple throughout the story. So, while the action-adventure rhythm is present, the emotional undercurrent adds a depth that nudges the genre away from being just a surface-level rescue mission. When it comes to humor, Toy Story 4 strikes a near-perfect balance. It doesn't lean into slapstick just because it can. It chooses comedy that emerges naturally from the characters' quirks. Forky's repeated attempts to dive into the trash aren't just funny because of the physicality. They're funny because the humor comes from Forky's complete misunderstanding of his own identity. Buzz Lightyear's inner voice subplot pokes fun at his long-standing habit of taking himself a little too seriously, and his misuse of his voice box buttons creates moments that blend sincere character development with comedic timing. Ducky and Bunny, with their rapid-fire exchanges and their wildly over-the-top schemes, bring a chaotic energy that livens up every scene they're in. But even their humor has a sharpness. It's aware of its own ridiculousness. The humor never feels like it's parachuted in from another movie. It grows directly from the world and the personalities of the characters. The suspense beats in Toy Story 4 feel surprisingly layered. The antique shop is not just a setting, it becomes a playground of slow-building tension. Gabby Gabby and her eerie ventriloquist dummy henchmen are handled with a tone that tiptoes toward classic horror, without ever fully stepping into it. The way Benson moves, the creak of the shop's old floors, the quiet way Gabby Gabby speaks. It all crafts a kind of suspense that's more psychological than physical. Pixar doesn't need jump scares or chase scenes to build tension. The suspense lives in the uncertainty. Will Forky escape? Will Woody make it out? Will Gabby Gabby get what she wants? The film plays with these questions in a way that gives it a slow burn thrill, especially in the quieter moments when the toys are navigating the vast, dusty corridors of the shop. The dramatic core of the film is where Toy Story 4 begins to subtly push against genre expectations. Most animated adventure films, especially those in a long-running franchise, tend to reset the clock by the end, bringing the characters back to their starting point with new lessons learned but little structural change. This film doesn't do that. Instead, it dares to let Woody step out of his old life completely. His decision to stay with Bo Peep and leave Bonnie's room behind is a bold shift that challenges the idea that a toy's purpose is eternally tied to serving a child. The film plays with this genre convention and quietly subverts it, showing that the hero doesn't always have to return home. That sometimes, the home you find is the one you choose. It's a rare move in an animated franchise, where change is often temporary, and it gives the film a sense of evolution that feels genuine. The adventure beats themselves are carefully paced to never overwhelm the story. The RV chase, the carnival escape, the antique shop heist, all the classic action-adventure ingredients are here, but they are handled with a sense of scale that never loses sight of the fact that these are small toys in a big world. The action feels thrilling not because of explosions or massive set pieces, but because the stakes are always personal. The challenge of reaching a moving RV or leaping onto a spinning carnival ride becomes grand in the world of toys, and the film plays with this miniature scale to create action that feels intense, but grounded in the story's unique logic. What's clever is how the film uses genre elements to challenge its own characters. Woody is an adventurer by nature, but the film keeps putting him in situations that test his attachment to his old worldview. The genre's classic call to adventure is present, but it's not about saving the day, it's about saving his sense of self. Buzz's traditional role as the loyal sidekick is subverted as he finds his own form of guidance through misinterpreted inner voice prompts. Gabby Gabby, who at first appears to fit the mold of the creepy toy villain, turns out to be one of the most emotionally complex characters, her arc resolving not in a battle, but in a moment of shared vulnerability. Even the film's use of familiar Toy Story humor gets a playful shakeup. The running gag about how toys interact with humans, often leading to chaos or quick freezes, gets expanded in clever ways. The scenes where the toys have to manipulate the RV's controls to steer it back to Bonnie, using ridiculous methods like jumping on the accelerator or leaning on the steering wheel, take this convention and push it to its most entertaining extreme. It's a sequence that's pure genre fun, but it's also executed with precise timing that makes it feel fresh. There's also a playfulness in how the film handles genre cliches. The classic hero's journey is present. Woody sets out to rescue Forky and ends up rescuing himself, but the story constantly nudges expectations. Woody doesn't get a grand victory parade at the end. He gets a quiet goodbye. Gabby Gabby isn't defeated, she finds her place. Buzz doesn't have a dramatic identity revelation. He simply starts trusting his gut. These are small, intimate resolutions that carry more weight than a big, genre-typical showdown. The film isn't afraid to let quiet moments stretch, to give space to characters' choices, and to lean into the emotional beats without rushing to the next action scene. It balances its genre elements with surprising patience, letting humor, suspense, and drama coexist without one overpowering the other. The writing and direction embrace the flexibility of the adventure comedy format, using it not as a limitation, but as an open framework where they can explore identity, purpose, freedom, and belonging without losing the spirit of a fun, toy-filled romp. Toy Story 4 thrives because it understands its genre inside out. It knows exactly when to play by the rules and exactly when to gently break them, delivering an experience that feels familiar and comforting while still offering surprises, emotional depth, and a narrative structure that allows the characters to grow in ways that feel meaningful and earned. Toy Story 4 might seem on the surface like a light-hearted adventure about talking toys, but underneath the fun and humor, the film weaves in social and cultural ideas that feel timely and surprisingly mature. These aren't loud, in-your-face messages. They're softly embedded in the characters' choices, in the shifting dynamics of relationships, and in the quiet challenges to long-held beliefs about identity, purpose, freedom, and what it means to belong. One of the most striking cultural undercurrents is the way the film tackles the concept of identity and self-worth. Forky's journey is a simple but powerful exploration of self-acceptance and the question of what makes something valuable. Forky doesn't believe he's a toy. He insists he's trash over and over again, and his desperate attempts to throw himself away are both funny and quietly profound. In a world that often assigns worth based on origin, labels, and social roles, Forky's story speaks to the struggle of those who feel discarded, misunderstood, or like they don't fit into the neat boxes society offers. Bonnie, a child who assigns value based on emotional connection, instantly gives Forky purpose by loving him. The film never over-explains this. It simply shows that value comes from love and belonging, not from how something or someone is made. It's a gentle but pointed reminder that people don't need to come from a factory or a perfect background to be worthy of care. Woody's entire arc is built around questioning long-standing definitions of purpose. For 3 previous films, the mantra was clear. A toy's job is to be there for their kid. But in Toy Story 4, Woody faces the terrifying possibility that this may not be his only path. The film subtly challenges the cultural idea that identity must be tied to service, loyalty, or a single role in life. Woody has built his entire existence around the idea that he's valuable only if he's needed. When Bonnie begins to favor other toys, Woody can't accept fading into the background. His desperate attempts to prove his usefulness aren't framed as noble. They're shown as the anxious clinging of someone terrified of losing purpose. The film taps into the modern cultural conversation about moving beyond old roles, about finding new identities after jobs, relationships, or life stages end. Woody's final choice to step away from the child-centric life he's always known is a bold rejection of a rigid, culturally ingrained role in favor of personal freedom and self-defined purpose. The story respects that it's not a failure to walk away, it's growth. Bo Peep's reinvention is another layer of subtle social commentary. In the earlier films, Bo was a soft-spoken, supportive figure who largely stayed on the sidelines. In Toy Story 4, she's transformed into a fiercely independent, self-sufficient adventurer who has carved out a life on her own terms. Her decision to embrace the lost toy lifestyle is presented not as a tragedy, but as an empowering choice. The film positions her freedom not as something she was forced into, but as something she embraced, and it pushes back against the idea that being without a home means being incomplete. Bo Peep's character is a quiet challenge to traditional gender roles that often position female characters as anchors for male protagonists. She's not here to complete Woody. She's here to offer him a different perspective, to live her own story, and to model a life that's about choice, not obligation. The film also gently explores themes of abandonment and finding belonging in unexpected ways. Gabby's story is built around her belief that she is defective and unlovable. She spends the first part of the film trying to steal Woody's voice box, believing that fixing herself will make her worthy of love. This speaks to the pressure people feel to fix themselves to meet arbitrary standards. Gabby's arc isn't resolved by her becoming perfect. It's resolved by her accepting that there's someone out there who will love her as she is. Her moment of connection with the lost child at the carnival is handled with a surprising tenderness. It's not loud, not over-dramatized, but it quietly emphasizes the idea that there's a place for everyone, even those who feel forgotten or flawed. The film also plays with the notion of chosen families. Woody stepping away from Bonnie to stay with Bo Peep is not framed as a betrayal. It's shown as a valid, even joyful decision to build a new family on his own terms. The toys at the carnival form their own loose-knit family. Bo's team of lost toys creates their own supportive unit. The film gently challenges the rigid boundaries of what family and belonging must look like, leaning into the idea that connections formed by choice can be just as powerful, if not more so, than connections assigned by tradition. Buzz Lightyear's subplot about listening to his inner voice is a playful, but meaningful jab at modern culture's obsession with self-help mantras and internal guidance. Buzz's literal interpretation of his voicebox commands as life advice is both funny and a subtle reminder of how easily people can latch onto pre-packaged wisdom without questioning whether it actually applies. It pokes fun at the idea of looking for answers in canned phrases, suggesting that sometimes true guidance comes from trusting experience, not just following catchphrases. The film lightly brushes against ideas of consumer culture as well. Forky is made from discarded materials, and the carnival is bursting with mass-produced prizes, yet it's the handmade, imperfect Forky and the dusty, long-forgotten Gabby who carry the emotional center of the story. There's a quiet commentary here about how value isn't tied to newness, shininess, or popularity. In a world obsessed with the next big thing, Toy Story 4 turns its attention to the things people throw away, the things people overlook, and the spaces where forgotten toys and forgotten people can still find meaning. The way the film handles these cultural threads is what makes them resonate. Nothing feels forced or preachy. The social ideas aren't delivered as lessons. They emerge naturally from the characters' journeys. The film trusts the audience to pick up on the deeper layers without needing to be told directly. It allows complex emotions to unfold through playful dialogue, tender moments, and carefully crafted character arcs, letting themes like self-worth, freedom, and belonging quietly bubble beneath the surface. Toy Story 4 doesn't set out to be a cultural manifesto, but in its gentle way, it taps into the anxieties and hopes of a world where people are constantly questioning their purpose, their worth, and their place in the bigger picture. It invites viewers to consider that maybe purpose is not something assigned. It's something discovered, something chosen, something that can evolve. It celebrates freedom, reinvention, and the quiet, brave decision to walk a different path. In a story about toys, it tells a very human tale about growing beyond the roles we've always known. Toy Story 4 knows exactly how to pull its audience into every moment, every laugh, every emotional tug, every wild chase, and every quiet farewell. This is not a film that simply plays out on the screen. It's a film that reaches right into the heart of its viewers and invites them to feel like they're part of the journey. It doesn't just entertain, it lingers. The emotional hooks in this film are so well-timed and so deeply rooted in the characters' journeys that audiences can't help but react, whether it's with loud laughter, silent tears, or that unique Pixar sensation where your chest feels tight, but you're somehow still smiling. Right from the beginning, the film pulls viewers into a place of nostalgia mixed with curiosity. Returning to the world of Woody and Buzz is like reuniting with old friends. And the film plays on that familiarity in the best possible way. The opening rescue in the rain is more than just an action beat. It sets the tone that this is going to be a story about loyalty, change, and letting go. It grips the audience with the thrill of the adventure, but quickly settles into the quieter emotional questions that unfold across the story. That's where the film starts working on its audience, slowly building a connection that feels personal. The introduction of Forky instantly sparks laughter. His bizarre obsession with trash, his frantic dives into bins, and his hilarious misunderstandings about what it means to be a toy offer some of the film's biggest laughs, and audiences quickly fall in love with him because he's so unapologetically confused and sincere. But what's brilliant is how that laughter is always balanced with warmth. Forky's sense of worthlessness is funny on the surface, but audiences quickly realize it's actually incredibly relatable. How many people have felt like they don't belong, like they're not good enough, or like they were never made for the life they're living? Forky's simple, honest words about being trash hit harder than they should because the audience can see the deeper emotional layers hiding under the humor. It's a classic Pixar move, getting you to laugh and then, without warning, hitting you with something real. Woody's emotional journey is perhaps where the strongest audience connection takes root. Longtime fans of the series have followed Woody through every triumph, every fall, every desperate attempt to protect his kid. By the time Woody starts realizing that he's no longer Bonnie's favorite, the film begins pressing on a universal anxiety. The fear of being left behind, of not being needed, of losing purpose. Audiences feel that ache, and the film makes sure to let it sit long enough to really land. Woody's need to prove his worth is not played as a flaw. It's shown as something human, something audiences can see in themselves. The way he clings to the idea of duty, even when no one else expects it from him, makes his eventual choice to let go all the more powerful. When Woody finally decides to stay with Bo Peep and walk away from his old life, the weight of that decision presses hard on the audience. It's a choice that leaves many viewers blinking back tears because it's not just Woody's story ending. It's the closing of a chapter that so many people grew up with. The humor throughout the film is a constant driver of audience engagement. Ducky and Bunny's wild energy, especially during their ridiculous key-stealing fantasies, sparks out-loud laughter that cuts through the film's heavier emotional beats. The way these two bounce off each other, offering increasingly absurd ideas with complete seriousness, keeps the audience leaning in for more. Their presence ensures the film never stays too heavy for too long, and their humor is so sharp and unexpected that it invites repeat viewings just to catch every rapid-fire joke. Buzz's subplot about finding his inner voice brings an entirely different kind of engagement. Audiences love the way Buzz completely misunderstands the concept and relies on his voice box for guidance. Every time he presses a button and follows its robotic advice as life wisdom, it lands as both hilarious and oddly sweet. It's a gentle send-up of how people search for external signs to guide them. And it's one of those comedic threads that gets even funnier the more it plays out. The carnival setting explodes with vibrant energy, and the action sequences set here create real excitement. Whether it's Woody and Bo leaping across spinning rides, Forky's desperate attempts to escape, or the toy's chaotic manipulation of the RV, the carnival is filled with dynamic moments that keep the audience's adrenaline up. The film moves in these thrilling waves. 1 minute the audience is holding their breath as a toy narrowly avoids disaster. The next they're laughing at Forky's awkward shuffles toward the nearest trash can. But what really keeps audiences connected to Toy Story 4 is the depth of its emotional reach. Gabby Gabby's arc is one of the most quietly powerful moments in the film. Audiences enter her story expecting the typical villain, but what they get is a character so painfully lonely that her journey becomes impossible to resist. When she finally finds a child who needs her, and when Woody steps aside to help her get there, it hits with a surprising force. The softness of that scene, the vulnerability, the way Gabby realizes she doesn't have to be perfect to be loved. It's the kind of emotional beat that sneaks up on viewers and lingers long after the credits roll. The way the film handles her transformation is subtle but deeply effective. It's not about flashy redemption. It's about quietly finding a place where you belong. What really invites repeat viewings is how much detail, humor, and emotional layering is packed into the film. The more you watch, the more you catch. Little facial expressions, quick one-liners, quiet visual cues that carry emotional weight. The film doesn't spell everything out. It trusts the audience to pick up on the smaller things, and that's what brings people back to it again and again. Each viewing offers a chance to notice something new. Whether it's the way Bo Peep's confidence shines in her smallest gestures, or the way Woody's posture changes throughout the film as he slowly begins to accept a life beyond Bonnie's room. Toy Story 4 naturally invites conversation, not just because of its humor or its action, but because of the emotional decisions the characters make. Woody's choice to leave his friends and stay with Bo Peep is a bold narrative move that sparks discussions about what it means to grow, to move on, and to find purpose beyond familiar roles. Some viewers see it as a beautiful ending. Others wrestle with the sadness of that goodbye, but almost everyone feels something. It's the kind of ending that doesn't just close a story. It invites audiences to reflect on their own lives, their own attachments, their own ideas about loyalty and freedom. The film doesn't chase shock value. It earns its emotional reactions through carefully built connections. The humor lands because it's tied to character. The tears fall because they're tied to growth. And the excitement pulses because the stakes always feel personal. Whether it's a child discovering the joy of Forky, a teenager connecting with Bo Peep's free spirit, or an adult quietly realizing that Woody's journey mirrors their own fears about change. The film speaks to everyone in different ways. When lining Toy Story 4 up against other films in the Toy Story franchise, as well as other animated adventure comedies, it carves out a space that feels both familiar and unexpectedly bold. The first Toy Story film was revolutionary, not just for its groundbreaking animation, but for how it told a deeply human story through the eyes of toys. Toy Story 2 raised the stakes with emotional depth and expanded the toy universe, while Toy Story 3 delivered a near-perfect emotional finale that felt like the ultimate closure. Stepping into Toy Story 4, many expected either a comfortable epilogue or a familiar retread, but what they got was something that quietly rewrote the franchise's emotional blueprint while still playing with the same tools that made the series beloved. Compared to its predecessors, Toy Story 4 introduces a more introspective, personal journey. The earlier films focused on the relationship between toys and their owners, tying the toy's sense of purpose directly to their loyalty to their child. The first film revolved around jealousy and acceptance, the second focused on identity and legacy, and the third was all about loss and growing up. Toy Story 4 breaks this pattern by turning the lens inward. Woody's journey is no longer about Andy or Bonnie, it's about Woody choosing his own path. This is a significant shift that distinguishes this film from the trilogy that came before, where the earlier films found their stakes in staying together or returning home. Toy Story 4 finds its stakes in letting go and moving on. It's a quieter, riskier narrative direction that pushes the emotional core of the franchise into new territory. When compared to other Pixar films, Toy Story 4 fits comfortably among the studio's emotionally driven, character-first stories, but carries a more mature tone when placed next to its lighter peers. Films like Finding Nemo and Cars have similar adventurous beats, but tend to circle back to the safety of home and reaffirm traditional structures of family and belonging. Toy Story 4 pushes past that by exploring the idea that sometimes leaving is the right choice, that sometimes freedom and self-discovery are more valuable than returning to where you started. It shares DNA with Inside Out, which also leaned into emotional complexity, but Toy Story 4 wraps that depth in the vibrant, action-packed world the franchise has always delivered. It walks a tightrope between heart-pounding adventure and quiet emotional shifts, never letting one outweigh the other. When compared to similar animated adventure films from other studios, Toy Story 4 continues to set itself apart in the way it balances genre tropes with emotional ambition. Many animated sequels, particularly in long-running franchises, tend to stick to safe territory, relying heavily on nostalgia, recycled gags, and familiar character arcs. Toy Story 4 isn't interested in recycling its greatest hits. It introduces new characters like Forky, who brings in an entirely fresh angle about self-worth and identity, and it repositions Bo Peep from a background figure to a dynamic, independent adventurer. Where some sequels simply expand the world, Toy Story 4 reshapes it. When placed against other toy-centric animated films, such as the Lego Movie, Toy Story 4 feels more grounded in emotional realism. The Lego Movie leans heavily into rapid-fire humor, pop culture references, and meta-commentary, creating a fast-paced, joke-driven narrative that constantly winks at the audience. Toy Story 4 plays it differently. It takes its world seriously, allowing humor to grow naturally from character rather than from gags or self-awareness. Both films explore ideas about self-worth and belonging, but Toy Story 4 allows more space for emotional beats to breathe. It doesn't sprint from joke to joke. It carefully walks through its story, letting small moments resonate. Even when compared to other fourth installments in major franchises, Toy Story 4 feels refreshingly distinct. In miniseries, the fourth film often struggles to justify its existence, sometimes becoming a hollow cash grab or a formulaic retread of earlier successes. Toy Story 4 not only justifies its place, it expands the emotional scope of the entire series. It's not trying to outdo the action of Toy Story 3 or recreate the humor of the first film. It's reaching for something quieter, something more introspective. It leans into change rather than nostalgia, which is rare for a franchise with such a long, beloved history. From the director's perspective, Josh Cooley steps into the director's chair with Toy Story 4 after working on other Pixar projects, and his style feels carefully balanced between honoring the franchise's established rhythm and introducing his own narrative fingerprints. Cooley's direction brings a slightly more patient pacing and allows the story to dwell in silence more than earlier installments. He leans into the visual storytelling in ways that make Toy Story 4 feel less frenetic than many comparable animated films. The film trusts the audience's attention, using quieter beats and more subtle character work to build its emotional core rather than rushing from one set piece to another. Compared to some of Pixar's more comedic directors, Cooley's touch feels more restrained but no less engaging. When stacked against the broader field of family adventure films, Toy Story 4 stands out for its refusal to lean heavily on villain tropes. Gabby Gabby is introduced as a potential antagonist, but the film steadily unpacks her loneliness and desperation until it's clear she's not a villain at all. This choice pushes Toy Story 4 away from the familiar good versus evil formula and towards something more nuanced, where conflicts are internal and victories come through empathy and understanding rather than through defeating a bad guy. In this way, it distances itself from many other animated adventures that rely on clear, external threats. The film also stands apart in how it handles its humor. Unlike many franchise sequels that chase loud, over-the-top comedy to keep younger audiences engaged, Toy Story 4 finds its funniest moments in the quiet quirks of its characters. Forky's complete misunderstanding of his own existence is hilarious because it's so earnest. Buzz's misinterpretation of his inner voice is funny because it grows directly out of who he is. Ducky and Bunny's over-the-top escape plans are wild, but they don't feel like they're from a different movie. They feel like the perfect expression of two Carnival prizes who've spent years waiting to be won. The humor feels integrated into the emotional fabric of the story, not just sprinkled in to hit a joke quota. Where some animated films rely on spectacle, Toy Story 4 confidently holds back. The action sequences are thrilling, but always grounded in character stakes. The RV chase is exciting because the toys' success matters personally. It's not about saving the world, it's about saving their chosen families, protecting their sense of self, and navigating life's changes. The Carnival, the antique shop, Bonnie's kindergarten. These settings feel grand and adventurous, but the stakes remain tightly tied to individual growth and emotional choices. Toy Story 4 is packed with layers of symbolism and metaphors that add depth to its playful, colorful world. Beneath the surface of the toy-sized adventures, the film quietly builds a network of visual cues, recurring motifs, and deeply rooted metaphors that enrich the characters' emotional journeys and subtly push the story's larger ideas about purpose, freedom, identity, and self-worth. One of the film's most powerful symbols is Forky himself. He isn't just a funny new character made from trash. He represents a literal metaphor for the idea that value and purpose are not inherent in where you come from, but are assigned by love and connection. Forky believes he is trash because of what he's made of. He repeatedly throws himself into bins, trying to return to what he thinks is his place in the world. But his journey, and Woody's tireless mission to save him, serves as a visual metaphor for discovering self-worth. Bonnie's love transforms Forky's identity from discarded junk into a cherished toy, symbolizing how meaning and belonging are created through relationships, not origins. Forky's journey is not just his own, it's a mirror for Woody's struggle with identity. Woody also feels like he's being discarded, not because he's broken, but because he's no longer chosen. Forky is Woody's physical reminder that identity can be reshaped, even if you come from the trash heap. The antique shop becomes a central symbolic space in the film. It's not just a dusty collection of forgotten objects. It's a metaphor for the past, for the spaces people get trapped in when they cling to old identities. Gabby Gabby's life in the shop reflects the dangers of being stuck, waiting endlessly for someone to choose you. She has been sitting on the same shelf, surrounded by beautiful but unwanted objects, believing that her imperfections have denied her the chance to be loved. The shop's maze-like structure, with narrow corridors and towering stacks, visually represents the feeling of being lost in a world that has moved on without you. Woody's time in the shop echoes his own fear of irrelevance, and his eventual decision to leave symbolizes breaking free from the dusty shelves of the past and stepping into a new kind of life. Bo Peep's broken arm is a brilliant piece of visual symbolism. She wears it proudly, often taping it back on without a second thought. Her break is never treated as a flaw or something to be ashamed of. It becomes part of her strength and resilience. In contrast to Woody, who is obsessed with preserving the past and being perfect for his child, Bo embraces her imperfections and uses them as proof that she's lived fully and taken risks. Her break isn't just a physical detail, it's a metaphor for the strength that comes from surviving damage and moving forward anyway. The carnival itself is a rich metaphor for freedom and possibility. It stands in stark contrast to the tightly controlled, rule-driven world of Bonnie's bedroom and the antique shop. The carnival is chaotic, open, unpredictable, a symbol of the life Woody never considered. It represents a place where toys can find their own paths, where they aren't tied to one child or one purpose. The blinking lights, spinning rides, and endless crowds suggest that there's more out there than Woody ever allowed himself to imagine. The carnival isn't just a backdrop. It's the physical manifestation of choice, of living beyond the boundaries Woody has built around himself. Buzz's voice box buttons serve as a running metaphor for searching for direction in the wrong places. Buzz spends much of the film pressing his own buttons, listening to their programmed phrases, as if they are the wisdom of his inner voice. This literal interpretation of following one's inner voice becomes a playful but meaningful symbol of how people often look for guidance from preset ideas, cultural mantras, or the things they've been taught to believe rather than trusting their own instincts. Buzz's eventual growth comes when he learns to quiet the programmed responses and start making decisions for himself, turning those canned phrases into a personal sense of direction. Gabby's pull-string voice box is a deeply layered symbol throughout the film. For Gabby, the broken voice box defines her entire worth. She believes that without a perfect voice, she will never be loved. Her desire to take Woody's voice box is not about power, it's about trying to fix what she sees as the thing that disqualifies her from happiness. But as the story unfolds, the real meaning becomes clear. Her voice box is not what makes her lovable. It's not the perfect sound that gives her value. It's her willingness to reach out, to connect, to be vulnerable. When she finally finds the courage to approach the lost child at the carnival, it's not because her voice is flawless. It's because she's open to love and belonging. The voice box is a symbol of the false belief that perfection is necessary to be worthy of connection. The RV that Bonnie's family travels in serves as a subtle symbol of movement, transition, and the journey between one life stage and another. Woody's mission to return to the RV is driven by his lingering attachment to his old role. But the RV keeps moving, keeps driving forward, whether Woody is there or not. It's a visual cue that life doesn't stop when we're not part of it. That people move on, that roles shift, that sometimes we must choose whether to chase the moving vehicle or find a new road. Woody's decision to step away from the RV and stay with Bo Peep is a powerful visual metaphor for choosing his own direction instead of clinging to the familiar. Even the recurring motif of the lost toys carries symbolic weight. Lost toys in Toy Story 4 are not portrayed as tragic figures. In fact, Bo Peep and her crew of independent, self-reliant toys show that being lost can mean being free, being unclaimed, and having the ability to chart your own course. It flips the language of the franchise. Where being lost once meant being in danger, in this film, being lost can mean finding your own adventure. The label is redefined from something negative to something liberating. Bo Peep proudly wears the label, challenging Woody to see that a life without a child's ownership is still a life worth living. There are also quieter visual cues that carry meaning. The way Woody's sheriff badge is passed to Jessie is a small, wordless symbol of trust, of letting go, and of passing responsibility. Woody doesn't need to announce that he's leaving his old life behind. The gesture speaks volumes. His badge, which once symbolized leadership and duty, now becomes a token of change and a quiet signal that Woody's identity is no longer tied to being the leader of Bonnie's toys. The scene where Woody and Bo Peep reunite in the antique shop is rich with symbolic weight. The dusty lamp from which Bo Peep was once a fragile, decorative piece is now a relic, no longer holding her back. Her past, represented by that lamp, is just a piece of furniture now. She has outgrown it. And she shows Woody that he can outgrow his old place, too. The lamp isn't just a prop. It's a reminder that Bo Peep's life has expanded beyond the object she once was. The story's quiet, recurring focus on windows. Whether it's the antique shop's glass front, the RV windows, or the windows in Bonnie's room, subtly reminds the audience of the barriers and choices between staying inside the life you know and stepping into the unknown. Toy Story 4 steps into a franchise that already holds a legendary place in animation history. Since the release of the original Toy Story in 1995, Pixar's first full-length feature film not only changed what animation could be, but also redefined storytelling in family cinema. Each Toy Story sequel has expanded that world, and each time the stakes were raised not just in action but in emotional complexity. When Toy Story 3 ended, many saw it as a perfect closing chapter. Andy gave his toys to Bonnie, Woody and the gang found a new home, and audiences around the world sobbed their way to what felt like a definitive end. That's what made the arrival of Toy Story 4 both surprising and risky. It had to justify its own existence in a series that already had what most people considered a flawless ending. Instead of continuing the saga in the same direction, Toy Story 4 carves out a new lane within the franchise. It shifts the focus from the collective journey of the toys to Woody's personal journey of self-discovery. The earlier films all centered on toys serving their child, first Andy then Bonnie, and their identity was tightly locked into that service. In Toy Story, Woody wrestled with being replaced. In Toy Story 2, he struggled with legacy and belonging. In Toy Story 3, the toys faced abandonment and the end of childhood. But in Toy Story 4, the story finally asks, what happens when a toy's purpose is no longer about the child? Woody's journey leaves the pattern behind. Instead of circling back to the familiar structure of toys finding their way home, the film dares to suggest that sometimes home is what you choose for yourself. This shift in narrative focus gives the franchise a broader emotional reach. Where the earlier films emphasized loyalty and togetherness within the context of serving children, Toy Story 4 introduces the idea of self-guided freedom and choosing a life outside of those traditional expectations. It adds a layer to the franchise's thematic growth. Woody's decision to stay with Bo Peep and live as a lost toy is not a reset, it's a step forward. It changes the rules of what it means to be a toy in this universe. Previous Toy Story films followed a loop. The toys face separation, they fight to get back together, they reaffirm their duty to their child. Toy Story 4 breaks that loop. It says it's okay to walk away, to grow, to move on. This is a radical shift for a franchise that once told audiences that being there for your kid was the ultimate purpose. This film gently rewrites that core message without discarding it. It simply expands the story's emotional vocabulary. The film also adds texture to the universe by introducing new types of toys and new spaces where toys can thrive outside the traditional child's bedroom. The antique shop, the carnival, the world of lost toys. These places show that the toy world is much bigger than we ever saw in the first 3 films. In the earlier installments, toys were bound by the rules of their owners' homes and schools. Toy Story 4 opens up the map. It introduces the idea that there's a life beyond ownership, that there's adventure and meaning outside the structured world of a child's playroom. This builds on the franchise's history, but also redefines the playing field. Bo Peep's transformation is a key example of how the film reshapes the franchise's narrative scope. Bo, who was sidelined in the first 2 films and completely absent in the third, returns as a fully realized, independent character. Her life as a lost toy isn't presented as a tragedy, it's an empowered choice. She has built a family, carved out her freedom, and found joy outside of the traditional toy-kid bond. Her story challenges Woody's long-held belief system and, by extension, challenges the audience's expectations about what happiness looks like in this universe. Through Bo, the film widens the Toy Story lens, showing that there's more than one valid way to live. In terms of tone and pacing, Toy Story 4 takes its time in ways the previous films didn't. The first 3 movies were tightly focused on the urgency of returning home, reuniting with the group, or being there for their child. This film lingers more in its quieter moments, allowing the emotional weight to settle. The story is less about racing against the clock and more about navigating choices and identities. This shift in pacing gives the film a slightly more reflective quality compared to its high-energy predecessors, which felt more like a sprint from one challenge to the next. What's fascinating is how Toy Story 4 retroactively deepens the meaning of the earlier films. Woody's constant need to lead, his fierce loyalty, his anxiety about being left behind. They all take on new layers when viewed through the lens of this 4th installment. The seeds of Woody's identity crisis were always there, but this film finally allows him to confront it directly. It doesn't undo the previous films, it reframes them. His attachment to Andy, his desperation to be Bonnie's favorite, his endless quest to save his friends. All of it was leading to this moment where he could finally ask what he wants for himself. The introduction of Forky adds something unique to the franchise's history as well. Forky isn't a factory-made toy with a traditional backstory. He's crafted from discarded items and spontaneously granted life by Bonnie's imagination. This small detail redefines the toy world's rules. Forky's existence suggests that toys don't have to come from a store or a manufacturer. They can come from love, creativity, and even from trash. This fresh angle opens new doors for what is considered a toy in this universe, and subtly rewrites the boundaries of the world we thought we knew. Even Buzz's journey fits into this new layer of the franchise. In the earlier films, Buzz's arc was about discovering he wasn't a space ranger. In Toy Story 4, his internal journey is smaller but thematically aligned. He learns to trust his instincts, to lead without needing external validation. His role as the faithful second-in-command shifts into someone who can stand on his own and think for himself. This quiet evolution rounds out Buzz's character within the larger tapestry of the franchise. Gabby Gabby's storyline adds another wrinkle to the franchise's historical narrative. Unlike previous antagonists like Lotso or Stinky Pete, Gabby Gabby isn't a clear villain. She's complex, lonely, and driven by a desire to be loved, not by a thirst for power or revenge. Her redemption isn't a last-minute switch, it's baked into her entire journey. Her story builds on the franchise's move away from black and white morality toward more nuanced portrayals of conflict and resolution. Across the series, each Toy Story film has addressed a stage of growing up. The first was about sibling rivalry and jealousy. The second was about the fear of being forgotten. The third was about saying goodbye to childhood. Toy Story 4 takes the next logical step. It's about choosing your own path in adulthood. It's about letting go of prescribed roles and deciding what matters most on your own terms. Within the franchise's larger timeline, this installment becomes not just another adventure, but a necessary evolution that brings emotional closure to Woody's arc in a way that is both surprising and deeply satisfying. Toy Story 4 respects the history of the franchise while subtly shifting its course. Toy Story 4 was built with the kind of budget that tells you Pixar wasn't here to play small. With an estimated production budget sitting comfortably around $200 million, this was not just another animated film. It was a major cinematic event. That budget was poured into every shimmering frame, every fluid character movement, every detailed texture, and every expansive, colorful set piece. The money is right there on the screen, from the rich, velvety softness of Woody's sheriff badge to the intricate lighting of the antique shop's dusty shelves. This is the kind of animation that takes its time, that demands the highest level of craftsmanship, and Pixar's investment shows in the smallest visual details, whether it's the subtle way light bounces off Bo Peep's porcelain skin, or the chaotic, kinetic energy of the Carnival lights swirling in the background. But spending big is only half the story. The real thrill comes from watching how that investment pays off in the box office arena. Toy Story 4 didn't just stroll into theaters. It arrived with the full force of one of Pixar's most beloved franchises behind it. The film raced past the $1 billion mark globally, raking in over $430 million domestically and more than $640 million internationally. That's the kind of financial power that doesn't just echo, it roars across the industry. For a fourth film in a long-standing series, these numbers are a clear sign that the appetite for Woody, Buzz, and the gang hadn't faded a bit. In fact, the numbers suggest that audiences were more than ready to return to this world, even after what many had assumed was the perfect conclusion in Toy Story 3. What's fascinating about Toy Story 4 is how much of its box office success was driven not just by its franchise power, but by the carefully built marketing campaign that followed it. Disney and Pixar knew exactly how to stir up just enough curiosity without giving away the film's bold emotional direction. The trailers leaned heavily on nostalgia, on the comforting visuals of familiar characters, but they also teased the introduction of Forky, a brand new, wildly unconventional character that promised something a little different this time. This clever balance of old and new drew in loyal fans while also appealing to younger audiences discovering Toy Story for the first time. It's no accident that the film became one of the biggest earners of the year. It was positioned perfectly to capture both the hearts and the wallets of multiple generations. Audience reception played a key role in fueling its continued box office momentum. Word-of-mouth buzz around the film's emotional weight, its humor, and its visual splendor kept drawing people back for repeat viewings. There's something about Pixar films, especially the Toy Story series, that invites entire families to attend together, sometimes across 3 generations. And with Toy Story 4, that pattern held strong. It wasn't just kids tugging their parents to the theater. It was adults pulling their friends, their own kids, even their parents along to experience it all over again. The nostalgia wasn't just a background hum. It was a driving force at the box office. What makes the budget-to-success story of Toy Story 4 even more interesting is how seamlessly the production quality matches the scale of its earnings. Sometimes films with sky-high budgets stumble because they forget to put that money where it matters, into story, character, and craftsmanship. But here, the financial investment is backed by the kind of meticulous care that Pixar is known for. From the dynamic camera work that sweeps through the Carnival rides to the nuanced, almost human facial expressions on toys made of plastic, every dollar spent seems to serve the story. The animation itself feels like a leap forward even from Toy Story 3, with deeper textures, richer lighting, and a more lifelike world that still holds onto its playful, toy box magic. The international success of Toy Story 4 can also be traced to the universal appeal of its themes. The film's exploration of purpose, freedom, and self-worth doesn't need cultural translation. The emotional beats hit everywhere, and Pixar's global marketing machine made sure the film reached every corner of the world. The promotional push wasn't just about toys. It was about a cultural event. Merchandise flooded stores, tie-in products appeared across major brands, and the Toy Story characters once again became impossible to avoid, whether you were walking through a shopping mall, watching TV, or just scrolling through social media. Interestingly, the film didn't need to rely on heavy gimmicks or artificial hype. The legacy of the franchise did a lot of the heavy lifting. By the time Toy Story 4 hit theaters, it already had decades of goodwill stacked in its favor. Audiences trusted Pixar to deliver something meaningful, something visually stunning, and most importantly, something worth their time and money. The budget wasn't just about big action sequences. It was about upholding that trust, about delivering an experience that would feel worthy of the Toy Story name. Even when compared to the budgets and box office hauls of other major Pixar films like Incredibles 2 or Finding Dory, Toy Story 4 comfortably holds its ground as one of the studio's biggest financial successes. It fits right into the upper tier of Pixar's most profitable ventures, and it did so while carrying the weight of incredibly high audience expectations. It wasn't just about making $1 billion. It was about making $1 billion while still surprising people, while still taking risks with its narrative, and while still maintaining the impeccable production quality that Pixar is famous for. Ultimately, Toy Story 4 stands as a shining example of how a substantial budget can be fully realized on screen, how smart marketing can drive multi-generational audiences to theaters, and how a film can still find box office glory even when following what many considered an already perfect trilogy. It's a film that didn't just pay for itself. It earned its place in the hearts of moviegoers worldwide, proving that sometimes the 4th chapter isn't an afterthought. It's an adventure that people didn't know they still needed. If you're ready to dive back into the world of Woody, Buzz, Bo Peep, and the wonderfully confused Forky, there are plenty of ways to experience Toy Story 4 in all its colorful, heart-tugging glory. For those who missed the theatrical run, where the film originally lit up the big screens with its dazzling carnival lights and sprawling toy adventures, the good news is that Toy Story 4 has made its way to the comfort of living rooms, bedrooms, and anywhere a screen can follow you. It has settled nicely into the digital age where audiences can pick how and where they want to enjoy the story. One of the most inviting homes for Toy Story 4 is on Disney's own streaming platform. Disney Plus became the natural hub for Pixar's treasure trove, and this film is nestled right there, waiting for a cozy movie night or a weekend marathon that might just sweep you through the entire Toy Story saga. Streaming the film on Disney Plus offers one of the most seamless viewing experiences, high definition, crisp audio, and the ability to rewind that hilarious Ducky and Bunny sequence as many times as your heart desires. For those who enjoy pausing to catch all the tiny background details that Pixar so lovingly plants, streaming makes it easy to slow things down and savor every frame. Whether you're watching on a big screen TV with booming speakers or curling up with a tablet, Disney Plus gives viewers the flexibility to bring the toys to life in whatever space they choose. But for viewers who might prefer ownership or enjoy collecting digital libraries, Toy Story 4 is widely available across major digital rental and purchase platforms. Services like Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google Play Movies, and YouTube Movies offer the chance to either rent the film for a one-time watch or buy it, and keep it forever as part of your digital shelf. For those who love replaying favorite scenes, quoting the funniest lines, or just returning to the story whenever the mood strikes, owning a digital copy is like having Woody and Buzz sitting on standby, always ready for the next play session. For fans who still have a soft spot for physical media, Toy Story 4 is available in DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD formats. Watching the film on 4K Blu-ray can be a visual treat like no other, especially with Pixar's meticulous attention to detail. The textures, the lighting, the tiny imperfections in Forky's googly eyes. It all pops in crisp, vivid quality. For those who want the full cinematic impact, complete with rich colors and layered sound design, the 4K option delivers an experience that comes closest to the theater's original punch. Plus, many of these physical releases are packed with bonus features that peel back the curtain on the film's creation. Deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes featurettes, and insightful commentary tracks that can turn a simple movie night into a deep dive into Pixar's storytelling magic. Even television broadcasts occasionally rotate Toy Story 4 into family movie slots on satellite and cable channels. It's the kind of film that networks love to bring back during holidays, weekends, or animation marathons. Catching it on TV might not give you control over when it starts, but there's something delightful about stumbling upon a favorite scene in the middle of a channel surf. It becomes a welcome surprise, a quick visit with old friends, even if you join them halfway through their Carnival adventure. No matter where it's watched, Toy Story 4 carries its charm effortlessly across screens big and small. Whether viewers are wrapped in blankets on the couch, gathered with family in a home theater, watching quietly on a personal laptop, or streaming on the go during a long trip, the film adapts beautifully to its setting. For younger audiences, the accessibility through streaming services makes it easy to replay Forky's antics endlessly, while longtime fans can revisit Woody's emotional journey whenever they feel the pull of nostalgia. And for those who want the best possible picture and sound quality, a high-definition home setup with the 4K Blu-ray can transform the living room into a mini theater, with the lights of the Carnival sparkling just as brightly as they did on the big screen. The beauty of Toy Story 4 is that it doesn't demand a grand setup to work its magic. It brings its heart, its humor, and its adventure wherever the audience chooses to meet it. Whether the film is experienced through a late-night streaming session, a Saturday morning family screening, a digital rental on a quiet afternoon, or a carefully curated Blu-ray collection, the story finds its way, just as Woody always does.